Shibuya, the Hikario. I got that one wrong all the time. That's not Urianger. That's just, I don't know. That's a weird word for me. Hikario. And I even think I'm still saying it wrong. Building, the 11th floor. The entrance to the theater club. The theater cube, not theater club. Theater club would be high school. This room was also the entrance to the office floor, and it was always crowded with people. But now there was no one here save a lone employee and a single security guard. The festival event at the theater had finished up at 9 p.m., and there were no other plans to use it. It doesn't seem right. Theater cube, Q-U-B. I love it. I love it. Why do they translate it differently when it says it on the side? To be easier to read, I suppose, and it's fine. It's 100% what was intended, but I love it. The whole floor was lit up, giving it classy design and elegant atmosphere. It didn't at all match what was about to happen inside the theater, because by the time this was over, one of them would be dead on the floor. Sponsored by Shibuya News. Oh, I love that one too. To be fair, I also love that. Also, hey Joe and Ark, how you both doing tonight? Dead in time with food? Heck yeah, delicious food. What you eating? Amazing spoof names, yeah. I love... The Shibuya News was also fantastic. I don't know why that one doesn't get more prominently featured, but I love it. Because by the time this was over... Oh yeah, I read that. Oh, the Amazon one was like a... Oh, I forget. It was like rainforest or something like that. No. Oh, I don't remember what it was, but yeah. Enchiladas. Oh, okay. Delicious. Delicious. Not something I have often, but something I enjoy. Honestly, I only really have them when I go out to like a Mexican restaurant, but like... Good. But so, yeah, it was definitely different. That was like stream 1 of this game. Sarika stood in front of the convenience store on the floor and waited for the time to come. Or was that... That wasn't even this. This was was that Steins Gate? I think that was Steins Gate. There was no sign of Sakuma. But then, a little after 10 p.m., the game had happy times. It had happy times for a good ways. But it also started with sad times. It was like a... There was like a sadness sandwich. With like... sadness, happy, some tinges of sadness, and then it just went, well, oops, all sadness. All the books done? Oh, congrats as well. She realized something was wrong. I got my PvP armor today for rank 25 finally, so that's pretty good.
Oh.
The employee and security guard at the front desk suddenly started to leave. They dropped what they were carrying and began to stagger out, as if they weren't thinking about anything. Sure, that's unimportant. Her eyes went wide and she immediately tried to read their minds. Just static. She felt a sharp pain in her head when she did. They really weren't thinking about anything. There wasn't even the meaningless subconscious noise that all humans produced. Nobody was ever like this. Nobody normal, that is. Mind control, yeah, I mean, that's... He obviously didn't want to be interrupted, so... Yeah. The two of them walked to the escalator as if they were in a daze and then disappeared. All that was left was empty silence. He's well prepared. Good times. Another violent pain struck her. This didn't make sense. It already vanished. There was no reason why she should be hearing their thoughts. Where was this heavy strain coming from? What? She felt something very strange in her mind and body. And then she saw her left hand slowly begin to move without her controlling it. I mean, you are going up against a guy who can control, like... Okay. I'm sure this will end well. Oh, cool. Just gonna cut away from that suddenly. Are we ready? Yeah, everybody's ready to go. Shinjo was out of breath. He'd run back to Alba Dorm to take the place of the other officer, who I hadn't seen because I was in Uki's room. I could tell he'd been literally running around all day. Okay, I'm the one who'll be here for the next several hours. So you added to the body count? Yeah. I gave some false information to the media outside. There's no one here now. We can take the car and go. Miyashiro and Arimura are one thing, but when the next officer comes, how do you intend to explain Yamazoe and Yuto Tachibana's absence? Hadn't thought about that. That's a good question. There's no way to hide that, and it would be his fault if they went missing. I've learned how to change the subject by talking to you and Momose. Don't worry. I guess he got one good thing out of her. I'm not worried about your well-being. I have a lot of work planned for you after this. You can get demoted, but I can't have you being fired. Oh, of course. Don't worry. Just in case you ever thought that maybe she actually cared about another human being, she does not. Like, we know she actively hates the Gigolomaniacs, but he's not. He's a human being. Stock standard human. Still doesn't like him. And I truly don't think she's like being soon or anything. I think she just doesn't like anyone. Legitimately, I don't think it's her like, I think it's straight up just her like, I don't like you, but you can help me, so just don't get fired. See, this is how I learned. Shinjo sighed. Then Uki came in, with Yuto at her side and a worried look on her face. She slowly raised her hand, the other hand was clutching Yuto's tight. Yuto's eyes were still red and he wasn't looking good. Yuki seemed to be trying to hold him up. Where are we going? Good question. Akihabara for now. Ah man, go see some friendly science folks. What? Akihabara? There are only two subsections of Tokyo. It's either Akihabara or Shibuya. There is nowhere else. That's it. That's it. Yeah. We're sure we'd go somewhere less densely populated. I thought we'd go somewhere further away. Kunosato has someone in Akihabara helping her. I wonder who that could be. Shinjo looked at her. Someone helping her? A hacker who's better at finding information with a computer than I am. He is a weirdo, but he knows a bit about the situation. He'll put us up for a while. Hey! Also, hello Clydo, how's it going? Welcome to Viperland in the chat. How you going? Yeah, friend. I wonder who the hacker friend could be. It could be anyone. For some reason, Kunosato furrowed her brow and frowned. He's giving us a fairly decent machine, too, though who knows what I want in exchange. How dare you, Potions? How dare you call Daru hot garbage? Look what you've done, Ramen. Look what you've done. Not the Daru Taru, yeah. Shinjo seemed confused. I don't know. I don't know if we can call him best dad. To be fair, we don't really see it, like, we only see some of his Twitter as a dad so far. Well, no, we do see him in the future in Zero, like, not this version of him, but still Daru. Evidently, he hadn't met this helper of hers. I mean, maybe, yeah. Anyway, what's important isn't how far away from here we go. What's important is getting out of Shibuya. We'll stay there for a while and see how things go. That's true. That's true. Ferris has got a good dad, yeah. Ferris straight up just has a good dad. And a good butler. Ferris is good, yeah. That's the deal. Where's Arimura? So, Misshapen Chair, the YouTuber for who does a bunch of meme-worthy 14 content, has absolutely admitted that Ferris is his favorite character from Steins Gate, because of course. Oh, she's in Nono's room, on the phone. I see. Arimura had said she was calling her family before she left. But when she'd taken her phone into Nono's room, she hadn't looked like a girl who was saying goodbye to her family. It always felt like Arimura didn't want to talk about her family, and I hadn't brought the subject up. Is Shogun Taku's dead? I mean, you're not wrong. I wouldn't consider him as such, but he's not. Taku's dead. Maho's great, yeah. So I had a vague sense that they weren't on good terms, but I didn't know anything else. Okay, once she's done, we'll go. The car is by the front entrance. We won't have to worry about the media for a while, but be careful when you get in. The neighbors might be watching. I'm taking Yuto too. Huh? He is his dad, yeah. I mean, true, that he still wouldn't be any competition for best dad, but you know. Well, yeah. I mean, that is why we have... Whose dad is those dad? Suddenly Uki spoke up. I mean, Frau is just female Daru. 100% Frau is just female Daru. Like, 1,000,000,000%. She must have been nervous because she clutched his hand even tighter. Not that that's a bad thing, mind you, just stating the obvious, I suppose. She was acting a little strange, but it was also cute to see how much she cared. I couldn't help but smile. I looked at Shinjo and saw that his expression was much the same as mine. Of course, that's been the plan from the start. Is that okay, Yuto? Yeah. Yuto nodded. And then he looked at me. Brother Taku? Hmm? Where's Dad? Oh, yeah, they don't know yet. Is he okay? Oh, I forgot that they don't know. Oh, no. Yeah. They were gonna be told, but then he was like, don't do that. Only delaying the inevitable. Suddenly I didn't know what to say. Yuto didn't know anything about what was going on. Nor did Yuki, who was also looking at me and expecting an answer. Hurt to see how worried they looked. All I could do was tell myself that I couldn't make it any better. You say that as if we didn't immediately cut away from something really bad happening in the previous scene. I'll tell you later. When's the later? There's no right answer here, mind you. But I would argue not delaying it might be better, but also if they freak out now, they might not actually get in the car and go. There's no right answer. This is just bad no matter what. Once we get to Akihabara and get settled in. I could tell Yuto was struggling with his feelings. Now it was his turn to grasp Uki's hand tightly. Okay, as long as you promise. Yeah, go get your things. Okay. The two of them must have felt the exact same way as they went to their rooms, still holding each other's hands. Shinjo looked at me with a pained expression. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think they'd ever take it well, but like, I feel like he made the right call, all things considered, of when we get where we're going, then. Because it's going to be a freak out either way, rightfully so, but at least they'll be where they needed to be, not before going there. Oh yeah, he's not stupid. He clearly knows something's up, but like, yeah. There's no way he guessed exactly what's up. It's impossible, just like we couldn't. Of course, that was a lie. But Shinjo was nice enough not to say anything. Shinjo, I want to check one last thing. Oh, come on. Kunosato stared at the hallway where Yuki and Yuto had just left as she spoke. Hey, Soar! Holy mother of pearl. Big honkin' Grim gifted self. I don't think if Grim's here, all Iron Brain vibes do not crack. Thank you. Thank you, Potions. Thank you, Grim, who is either lurking or isn't here at the moment, but still, if they pop by later, I'll give a further shout out. Congrats, Soar, on the 3rd month of the continued gifted sub. But yeah, hey, Pots. It's sure something. It's sure something. Oh, we can't crack. We've made it too far. It would take. I can't say it's impossible for this game to break me, because it's not. But with how far we've come, it would take a lot. Not to say it couldn't be done. They could theoretically break me, but I don't think so. Kunosato. Oh, I read that. I could tell from the way she was acting that it had something to do with Dad. About 2.5 hours ago, someone appeared at the Memorial Park claiming to be Miyashiro, right?
Oh.
So yesterday, it was 89 degrees Fahrenheit in it's not even June yet. It was too hot, and it was humid, and it's too much. So we just pushed it to today. Yeah. But I'll say, hey, Sor, how's it going? Welcome to Viper Lane of the Jet. I'd remember the news I'd just seen on my tablet. The TV news and Twitter had all been talking about how I'd appeared at the Memorial Park. But of course that was a lie. I was right here. I assume he'll be let off with a warning and released tomorrow?
その予定だが
That's the plan. Feel sorry for the guy, but can you do whatever it takes to get him locked up for a few more days? Shinzo seemed to know what he was getting at. He looked out at the hallway too.
佐久間の仕掛けだと
You think Sakuma sent him? She nodded.
タイミング的には
The timing is such that any number of fakes could appear, but it worries me that a man trying to be Takeru Miyashiro didn't make the slightest effort to look like him, even at a distance. You should have been able to tell it was a different guy. It's true that he wasn't a Chaos Child Syndrome patient, Shinjo said. That was confusing. When I'd seen the man on my tablet, his height and age had been mostly the same as mine. From a distance, it would have been hard to tell us apart. And what did Chaos Child Syndrome have to do with it, when that was just a type of PTSD? I'd like to know more about him if I can. Kunosato tapped at her temples.
分かった
Got it. I'll work something out. It was also strange to see how easily Shinjo agreed to keep an innocent man locked up.
そろそろ出発しよ
It's time to go.
う有村
Tell
さんにも
Arimura.
そう伝えてくれ
He pointed to the clock before I could ask any questions. It was 10 p.m.
はい
Yes, I've got all our things ready. So this is definitely going to go perfectly smoothly, right? Huh? Yeah, already a good start. I opened the door to Nono's room to tell Arimura it was time to go, but there was no one there. The lights were off too. Was she done talking on the phone? Which would mean that she was having Kazuki get the last of their things together. So she'd be in the dining room, or maybe Uki's room? Come to think of it,
結局
I guess we got Kazuki involved in all of this too. Kazuki wasn't involved in this case directly, but she was helping a lot, just because she was a member of the newspaper club. Still, I couldn't ask her to come with us. Lance be going inside glaive. Oh yeah, get that Dragoon drop. While we'd been waiting for Shinjo, she tried to tell us that she'd come too, of course, using only a series of mumbles and gestures like always. But I'd refused, though I was grateful from the bottom of my heart. She seemed unsatisfied, but I'd finally gotten her to agree to it by promising to keep in touch and to come straight to her if we needed help. I couldn't cause any more trouble for someone who wasn't part of the case.
当事者
Part of the case, huh? I was suddenly conscious of the smells in Nono's room. Without bothering to turn on the lights, I shut the door behind me and walked over to her desk. I ran my hand along it, and only then did I realize it was the first time I'd been in here since her death. Yeah, I hope she doesn't end up being some dead, mind-controlled evil, any combination of the three. Like, she's the one remaining club member alive and well, and not evil, and not Taku. That's right. Well, I mean, I don't know if we can call Taku well, to be fair. That's also true. We don't really know her background or reasoning behind it. Like, it could be just a quirk, she doesn't like to talk to people, but it could be rooted in some actual thing, too. I mean, to be fair, considering the age of all these people, they all had to deal with that earthquake, and that leaves a lot on people, so even if she isn't a psychic and isn't anything else, maybe it's just tied to that. Not a lot going for those odds. Yeah, I know, but we can hope. That's right. No, wasn't supposed to be part of the case. Oh yeah, her fake backstory of basically Princess Leia. Yeah, no, that works. Oh, the other one. That was the spy one, right? Why, she's one of those people who deserves to be happy in life. I knew that. He was right. She wasn't supposed to die. There was no reason she deserved to die. She was simply killed because she learned Serika's secret. And was a psychic.
尾上
Oh, no way. What was her real goal? I remembered what Kunosato had asked me this afternoon. What was she really after? I almost screamed as I heard a loud noise from inside my bag. You're taking a while. We really gotta go. Are you good to go? I mean, we all know this is not gonna be that. It's gonna be something depressing and awful, but you know. It was the sound of my phone vibrating. Quickly flipped over the bag and spilled its contents onto the floor. Why not just get your phone? I picked the phone up off the floor and read the words unlisted caller in the darkness. Cool. This is gonna be great. That was kind of creepy. Yep. Did not have a good feeling about this. But I picked it up anyway. Afraid, I touched the answer button. See, it should be afraid I didn't touch the answer button.
Da-
Who's there?
一つ
There was something I forgot to tell you.
お前
You. I moved the phone away from my ear in surprise. It was Serica. There was no mistaking it. I checked the time on the phone without even thinking about it. 10:03 p.m.
話を聞け
Listen carefully. This won't take long.
なんで
Why are you... I realized how hard my heart was beating, and I put the phone back up to my ear.
そんなことは
That doesn't matter. I heard a sudden abrupt noise. Had she dropped her phone, or had something happened? I listened carefully so as not to miss a single sound. My hands were trembling violently. I hated it. Excuse me. And after I waited a moment,
宮代
Miyashiro, are you listening?
いるか
The voice was somehow weak and feeble. Something was off about the way she was acting.
聞いてる
I'm listening. What is it?
一つ
There was something I forgot to tell
言い
you.
忘れたことが
It was the same thing she just said.
おい
Hey, what's
どうしたん
wrong?
だ
Why?
お前の
I was the one who
両親を
killed your
殺
parents.
した
See,
のは
that one we kinda knew.
私だ
We didn't have explicit confirmation until now, but we kinda knew that one. I could hear the sound of the words she'd made, but I couldn't understand the meaning of the words themselves. But for some reason, my hand stopped shaking, and it suddenly seemed like everything around me had faded away into a white blur. What? The words were stuck in my throat. To be fair, she did it because you specifically wanted it done. I couldn't speak.
6年前
6 years ago, during the Shibuya earthquake, I was the one who killed your real parents at that shelter. Once again, I could hear the words, but I didn't understand them. 6 years ago, Shibuya earthquake, shelter, real parents. That's most of the important words. You're missing one. What? My cheeks suddenly felt hot, and my blurry vision came back into focus in the dark room. Only then did I realize what she'd said. I'm sorry, I've got dust on the monitor, just wiping it off. But what I felt wasn't rage.
なんで
Why? It was an important event from my past, but one I'd totally forgotten. My parents hadn't died in the earthquake. Someone had murdered them at the shelter. It was what Nono had refused to tell me when I'd just woken up from my coma. That was why she'd lied to me. That's why I'd run away from Alba Dorm and gone to live in Miyashita Park.
なんで
Why? I repeated. Why would she do that? You really don't want that answer. Why would she tell me that now? Because she's gonna die. All I could hear was her pained breathing. I kept waiting anyway. I couldn't hang up the call. I had to tell you now. I forgot to tell you.
だから
But why?
なんでなんだよ
I yelled at Serica as she repeated herself. Oh, cool.
おい
Hey,
Oh,
oh
no.
no, hey. Oh no, hey. Suddenly the call ended. She'd hung up. Thanks for that. Tried to call back and realized it was impossible. It was an unlisted number.
一体何なんだよ
The hell is going on? So 1 second. I don't know why there's somebody outside the window revving their engine, but cool. Thanks. I whispered, knowing I wouldn't get an answer. Really, what the hell? What was the point of calling me like that? Making sure you knew, I guess? No, there was a bigger question. Why?
お前は
Why was
何
Serica
のために
born?
生まれたんだ
Because you were super pissed at your really garbage parents. Like, his parents were not good at all. So, like, I get it. That day, I happened to meet my parents at the shelter. Then I had a terrible headache. That was probably when Serica was born. Then my parents were murdered at the shelter, which would mean that she murdered them right after I created her. Taku's not stupid. My thoughts were a mess and it was hard to think, but something told me I had to figure this out. No, you're right there, dude. Just take those two threads that are this close and just connect them. That's it. Yeah, it's pretty bad luck for parents. Serika said her goal was to keep me alive. But would killing my parents help me with that? Yeah. Mom and Dad were trying to get me to the shelter. To be fair, I don't think they would try to harm him, but I definitely think they were actively bad for his just general well-being in every way. I don't think they actually physically hit him. That would require them to be around and to care enough, and they didn't. Killing them would make me less likely to survive, not more. Just like Kunasato said, it didn't make sense. That's right. What Serika was saying didn't make sense. The very first thing she'd done after being born didn't make any sense, which meant her real goal wasn't to keep me alive. Suddenly I found myself looking at the picture on my phone. It was the photo of me and my family from Alba Dorm. It's a happy photo now. It's the same as what had happened with Nono. Sure, she'd figure out who Serika was, but if Serika's goal was keeping me alive, would that mean killing Nono? Nono would always try her best to protect me. She'd even risk her life to do so, which would mean that for Serika, it would be better to keep her alive. Assuming that if clearly they're leading up to that wasn't her main goal, but I feel like killing Nono still fit with her main goal because she was still working for somebody who had way more power and was a direct threat to Taku. I would definitely argue from her point of view, if we run with the assumption that her main goal is keep Taku alive, keeping the evil, sadistic, mind-controlling person close to him happy is way more of a benefit than pissing him off but still having Nono alive. Like, from her point of view, it does make sense if we go with the she wanted to keep Taku alive bit. So, like, yeah, I guess that too, but like, even without that, once you have like person close to him with legit mind control powers who has already threatened him, I feel like you're kind of screwed and you gotta do it. She could have just done what they did with Ito and used mind control to alter his memories about her real identity. So why didn't she? Why did she have to kill Nono? Yeah. Did she have some other goal? Was that why she had to take Nono's life? If that was the case, then I could feel a certain desire welling up within me, one I hadn't felt in a long, long time. I would find out why. And I would find out if my ridiculous idea was true. And for that to happen, I have to go there. No matter how things ended up. Am I serious about this? I checked the time on my phone again. 10:10 p.m. There were 18 minutes left until the moment when everything began. I laughed a little and ran my hand along Nono's desk again. Was I betraying Nono again? Yes. If she was still alive, would she have slapped me across the face if she found out about it? Absolutely. I'm sorry, but you know, you did it too. Also a valid point. You lied too in the end. You lied to protect me. So I'm going to do the same. Because this is about you, and you mean everything to me. This is about the reason why you died. I need to know the truth. I was lying when I said I didn't. Of course, thinking about what I was about to do terrified me. But I wasn't going to change my mind no matter what. I mean, yes and no. Like, maybe she would have just been like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed, and I'm coming with you. Oh hey, she's still here. Oh. I mean, surprisingly, it was Arimura, not Nono, who slapped me. She hit me so hard that the impact traveled all the way to my ears and made them ring. Don't be stupid, who do you think you're trying to impress? I was worried when I didn't see her. What are you laughing at? No, you're right. Yeah. put my hand in my cheek where she'd struck me, and it felt a little hot. I laughed because it hadn't hurt as hard when Nono did it, or as when Nono did it. Nono was used to slapping people's cheeks, after all. Or maybe she was just really strong? But Arimura seemed to think I was laughing because I wasn't worried at all. Her shoulders shook more violently with rage.
危険すぎます。向こうが何を企んでるのかわからないんですよ。
It's too dangerous. You don't know what they're planning.
話を聞きに行
I'm
くだ
just
け
going
だ
to hear what she has to say. I
大丈夫
think
だ
it's
と思う。
fine. He knows as well as she does how BS that is.
そんな嘘つか
Don't
ない
lie
で
to
くだ
me.
さ
You
い。
know it doesn't work. Arimura was out of breath and seriously angry. She was worried about me.
タクルさん。
Yuki and Yuto were standing next to her, looking worried. It's a terrible argument, yeah. And they both knew it. I leaned down so I was right at their height.
安心してくれ
Don't worry. It's true that I'm just going to hear what she has to
話を聞きに行くだけっていう
say.
のは本当だから
Definitely.
その先は
But
嘘だろ。
what came after that is a lie, right? You're
お前は
probably going to be killed.
この里さん
Kunosato, there's kids here, come on. Of course I knew that. There's a good chance I'd be killed. And Dad would be the one who killed me. But I wish you wouldn't say it in front of Yuki and Yuto.
お前は喧嘩すらしたこ
You've
とがない
never even been in a fight, am I wrong?
はい
Yes, but I had to go. I mean, I suplexed that one dude in my mind. That was pretty cool. My head knew it was stupid, and my heart was filled with terror. There was something even deeper that drove me
ク
forward.
ルス先輩は
Kurusu
そんなこ
wouldn't
と
want
絶対
that.
に
I
望ん
know
で
it.
ない。
He knows it too. What?
ウキから
Uki told me about the letter.
そっか
I see.
クルス先輩の気
Are you
持
going
ち
to just forget about what she
踏みに
wanted?
じる。
そう
Yeah, you're right. She'd be really mad.
きっと怒ると
She'd
思う
probably
け
slap
ど
me hard across the face, like Arimura just did.
でも
But I'm going anyway. Arimura looked like she was about to raise her hand again. But then she stopped, clenched it into a fist, and lowered it. Her eyes were a little red as she glared at me.
なんで
Why?
ごめん
I'm sorry. Her voice was so soft I could barely hear it. I lowered my head, unable to even look at her.
ウキとユウトのこと
Take care of Uki and Yuto, okay?
知りません。
It's not my problem. You're the eldest, right? You need to come back safe and be their big
ちゃんと帰っ
brother.
てきて自分でお兄ちゃんを
You're
やってくだ
terrible,
さ
she
い。
whispered as she left the room.
Mm.
Yep. Mm. Oh. Someone suddenly waved something in front of my face, and I leapt back. Kazuki had come up next to me. I wasn't sure when. She always surprised me like this.
お前
You're still here?
うん。
I can't leave you all here, her face seemed to say. Oh man, multiple flavors? She was holding a piece of candy on a stick. A lollipop? How many of these did she have? The answer is yes. I couldn't refuse her, so I took it and put it in my pocket. I'd probably never eat it though.
最後まで付き合
Sorry
わ
for
せて
getting you
悪いな
involved in this. Keep an eye on Yuki and Yuto until they go, and then take care.
そうしたら気をつけ
I
て
didn't
帰
think
る
she'd do it, but I didn't want her going with the two of them. I'd feel terrible for her family if that happened.
Hmm.
To go a few miles outside of this section of Tokyo, like, to be fair, I know Tokyo's big and I know that it's split into functional sections, but I don't actually know how big it is. So I don't really know what the actual distance between Shibuya and Akihabara is. But it seems like it's a train station or two, like a subway stop or two. So I'm imagining it like boroughs of New York City. So I'm just imagining it's like taking the subway from Manhattan to Queens. It's like, your family would never, like, see you again. It's like, you could probably yell loud enough, and, okay, not in New York City, you'd never yell over the noise, but still. She nodded like she always did. I tried to make sure that was a yes, but before I could, she ran out of the room after Arimura. Ramen, if it's a blow pop, would that make it Chekhov's gum? Kunosato was here too, so it would be okay, right? She would make it home, right?
あの、
Brother Takaru. Yuto spoke up, afraid, as he saw me watch her go. To be honest, I wasn't sure what to say. Anything I said felt like it would just make him more nervous. I tried to choose my words carefully, but in the end, this was all I could come up with.
行ってくれ後で
I'm
必ず
leaving,
ユウ
and
ト
I'll
として
catch up with you
合流
guys
するから
later. I mean, he's not an idiot. He knows that you're probably not coming back. I could tell from his face that he realized it was one of the white lies that adults often tell children, but he didn't say anything. He just looked at me with eyes that were redder than Arimura's.
いってらっしゃい。
Goodbye, we'll be waiting for you. Yeah,
ずっと待ってま
we'll
す
be
から。
waiting for you as long as it takes.
Ah.
Whew,
僕
yeah,
も待ってる。
I'll be waiting too, for as long as it takes.
Ah.
Yeah. Maybe Yuki's hand on his gave him strength, because he finally forced himself to say one last thing. I'm sorry, Yuto. Thanks, Yuki.
じゃあ
Okay,
行ってくれ
I'm off. Yeah, it is. I checked the time. There wasn't much time left, and if I stayed here any longer, my resolve would begin to waver. I nodded one last time at the two of them, then turned around. It was decided that Shinjo would drive me to get that name wrong every time. Iko Riwo. I know I'm saying it wrong. I wanted him to take the others to Akihabara as soon as possible, but I didn't see how I could get through the area around Shibuya Station on my own. Wow, you're even delaying everyone else getting safe for your own selfish reasons? Miyashiro. As I left to get in the car, Kunasato called to me from behind.
スマホは持っているな。
You've got your phone, right?
Hmm?
I put my hand inside my pocket to check. Of course it was there.
持ってますけど
I do. Why?
何でもいい。
If you find anything on the
もし
committee,
委員
no
会
matter
の情報を
what,
手に入れ
contact
た
me
ら
immediately.
すぐに連絡しろ。
Of course. I chuckled. That was exactly what I'd expected her to say. I didn't know if I'd find anything, but I promised that I would.
尾上からは
Onoe
お
told me
前
to
を
get
渋
you
谷
out
か
of
ら脱出
Shibuya.
させ、それを承諾したの
I
は
agreed, because she told me that if I got the
能力者を
psychics out of
渋谷から
Shibuya,
出せば
it could get me
委員会
closer to
に
the
近づけ
committee.
る。
はい
20-minute drive, okay. Yeah,
かといって
but if you decide not to go, there's no reason for me to stop you. I have no special need for you in particular.
それを止め
As
る
long
義
as
理
I
は
have Yamazoe and Arimura, that's
別
enough.
に。
ねえそうです
Yeah,
ね
I get it. You don't care. I understand. You didn't have to spell it out. You spelled it out pretty well the entire game. She was correct. If getting a psychic out of Shibuya would cause something to happen, Uki and Arimura would do just as well as I would.
だから、
So we're not waiting for you,
お
okay?
前のことは待たない
Her
ぞ。
words seemed to be testing my resolve one last time. So I looked her dead in the eyes and answered,
構いません
That's fine. I understand that. But for a while after that, she said nothing. She seemed to be, for once, at a loss for words. I frowned. Did she not like that answer?
何か
Something wrong? About what you were saying
お
before.
前の
She finally
さっきの
opened her
話
mouth
だけど。
hesitantly. She was probably talking about the call I'd gotten from Serica, when she told me that she was the one who killed my parents.
それが事実だとす
If
るなら
that's true,
何ですか
what, did you figure something out?
いや、
No. I mean, maybe. Urasato probably found Serica's words strange, just like I did. They didn't make sense, and Kunasato probably had a theory of her own, and one she was reluctant to share. But in the end, she put her hand on my shoulder without saying a word. Huh? Till now, all she'd ever done was grab me or choke me, so I was surprised. I'd never expected this.
どの道
Either way,
お
you
前
should
が
find the
確か
answer
め
for
るべきこと
yourself.
だ。
Make sure that whatever you do, you don't
せ
regret
いぜ
it.
い
And the words she said were different than usual, too. Kunasato was saying something nice to me? A psychic?
なんだ。
I mean, she's as convinced as you are that you're not coming back from this. The least she can do is be like, hope you find the answer, I guess. You're gonna die. Yeah, maybe she respects the truth seeking, honestly. Huh? Oh, no. I was so surprised that I said something I shouldn't have.
どうせなら
I'd rather you set me off with a last goodbye from Kay.
リスナーだった
I
んで
was
す
a listener.
ふざけるな。
Hell no. I refuse to play the role of that goody-goody stuck-up when I'm not trying to
あんな
manipulate
八方美人
information.
な
Get
人間を演じ
going.
るのはごめんだ。とっ
No.
とと行け。
Go. She pushed me away with the hand that she'd placed on my shoulder. I suddenly felt embarrassed. Why had I said that? I was so embarrassed that I tried to hurry into the car. Kunasato looked at me and said,
どうしても聞きたいな
If you
ら
really want to hear Kay again, wait till the next
次の放送。
broadcast. I turned around and looked at her face one more time. Her features were elegant, and her beautiful almond-shaped eyes were always frozen cold. They never betrayed what she was really thinking. Her personality was as cold as ice, befitting of a dedicated scientist who was always willing to do whatever it took to achieve her goals, regardless of the cost. It's called a mad scientist, by the way, but sometimes I caught a glimpse of some burning passion inside her. She really was a mysterious girl. Oh, right. There's one last thing I had to ask her, since this might really be my last chance.
なんだ
What?
人の
Why
顔
are you
をじっと
staring
見
at me?
久野里さんは
Kurasato, what's your
何の能
power?
力を
なんだと
What? Distance between us had started to shrink, but it grew back with that one question. I felt all the air around me freeze. I panicked.
だって
I mean, I saw it in
久野
your
里さん
room.
の部屋
何をだ
Saw what?
ディソードって
A
さ
D sword. That was
あれは
yours, right?
久野
は
Huh? Just as I thought things between us would end with another series of cold insults from her, Kunasato started to laugh. She kept laughing in a low voice as I stood there with my mouth hanging open. All I could do was stand there and watch. I didn't know Kunasato could laugh like that.
お前
Are you really a
本当に
gigglomaniac?
真の
You
ギガ
can't
ロマニアック
even tell the difference between the real thing and a fake?
本物と偽物の区別もつかな
See,
いと
I had thought it was real. Ramen was here, it was like, oh, it's fake. Now we have an answer. A fake?
あれはただのレプリカだ
That's just a replica I have for research purposes. My lab in America made it based off some
6年前の
documents from
資料
6 years
に取り
ago.
寄せてばらつきがあるにし
It
よ
was an
う
attempt to find out why, even if the shapes may vary, all the pipes of the Dirac Sea take the form of a
その
sword.
解明をしよう
But
と
it
した
didn't
が
work, so they gave me to use this piece of junk.
あんなもの
It's not good for anything but taking up space, but I do use it as a way to hang things up to
物干し
dry.
代わりに使ってい
And
る
then she laughed again. After she was done laughing, she pushed me to the car. I guess they were doing research on, like, D swords and just made a replica. And went, this doesn't help us at all. Take it. After she was done laughing, she pushed me to the car. And before she closed the door,
ああそうだ
alright, your classmate
お前
Ito,
の
was
同
it?
級生
It looks like he'll
伊
survive.
藤だったか
Okay. Okay. Oh,
忘れてるようだが
you seem to have forgotten, but you promised to be my guinea pig in exchange.
その約束
Come back and keep your
戻ってき
promise.
てちゃんと果たせよ
Then she closed the door. I nodded from behind the window and mouthed the words, "Thank you for everything." Everyone really was trying to make me feel better. Everyone really did want to see me again. But now I was going alone down a path that meant that might never happen. Dude, you chose this path.
静かだな。
Man, it really does seem like everything is pushing him down this path, though. Like, he wasn't gonna do this until she called him. If she just didn't call him, he was gonna go. He was gonna go. So either she was controlled to do that, because he knew, but also, to the best of our knowledge, it's not a lie. To the best of our knowledge, that was 100% the truth. So, like, it's quiet, huh?
はい
Yes. Shinjo said, mostly to himself from the driver's seat. Mind you, we didn't see the event actually happen in any flashback, but we got straight up to the point of it where, like, it probably happened. The Shibuya intersection was overflowing with people. They were all looking up at the footage of Memorial Park being displayed on the big TV screens. She didn't. But why else would she tell him that then? She had a ton of time in the past 12 hours or so to mention that. Like, you're right, he could. But she knows how curious he is about things. And if she had answered the why, then maybe the argument would stand of, like, she just wanted to get it off her chest. But cutting it off there and cliffhanging it, she knows at this rate. She's known him for, 6 tangible years, and as a part of his imagination for longer than that, how intensely curious he gets about things, and how he needs the answer. He's got to have the information. He's got to be a right-sider, and you can't be the right-sider if you don't have the information. So, like, she knew. Or he knew, depending. Time was 10:21 p.m. Yeah, so 7 minutes until the time when the earthquake began 6 years ago. When the time arrived, there would be a moment of silent prayer, and the festival would reach its finale. Everyone at the festival seemed to be heading for the park, or the intersection in front of the station, to participate. I could see a man who looked like a member of the city council on the screen. From the subtitles, he seemed to be giving a speech about the restoration project.
ち、まただ。
Not again. Get your head down.
はい
Okay. That's true. It means it's her birthday. Yeah. Shinjo had gotten this car just to take us out of Shibuya. The windows were tinted, so I didn't have to worry about anyone seeing me. But there was no way to hide from anyone looking at me from the front. Just in case, I kept myself as far down in the space below the seat as I could. We'd run into a lot of roadblocks once we entered this area, with the volunteer staff stopping us from going forward. Each time Shinjo had shown his police notebook and explained that this was a police car, and each time they let us through. But that meant that it was taking twice as long as usual.
ギリギリ
It'll be close. We may not actually make it by
28分には
10:28 p.m.
間に合わんかもしれないぞ
Shinjo said as he slowly weaved the car through the crowds of people.
いえ送っていただ
No,
くだ
I'm
けで
just
ありが
grateful
たいで
you're
す
giving me a lift. I never would have made it to the Hikariwo on my own.
時間を過ぎれば
If you get there later than
佐久間と
that,
鉢合わせす
you're
る可
more
能性
likely
は
to
高
run
くな
into
る
Sakuma. You're
それ
going
でも
anyway,
行
right?
くんだ
はい
Yes. So much for hiding low in the back seat. I could see Shinjo's face in the rearview mirror. He'd put his fingers up to the bridge of his nose, and his expression was pained.
警察官としては
As a
最悪
policeman,
の
this is
行
the
為だ
worst thing I could possibly do.
命
I'm
の
sending
危
a
険がある
minor
ところ
into a
に
dangerous
未成年
situation.
佐久間がシアターキュー
If
ブにい
he's
る
in
の
the
なら
theater cube, I'd
一緒
like
に
to
乗
go
り込ん
with you
で
and
拘
arrest
束した
him,
いから
but
だ
I don't have anything that proves his guilt. Also,
うん俺と
trust me,
佐久
you
間の
would
犯行を
only be a
何も証明でき
liability.
ない
The only thing we need is somebody getting mind controlled who has a gun. Yeah, that's gonna help.
上層部にも圧
And
力が
someone's
かかっ
putting
ている
pressure on the higher ups in the police department, too. It's like a
安
cheap
物の
detective
刑事ドラ
drama.
マ
委員会っていう
Is the
のは
committee really that powerful?
詳しいことはほとんど
Yes.
誰も知らない
Hard stop, yes. We don't even know the extent of their power, to be fair. Like, we have only encountered lower sub-level people, and like, yes, they are that powerful. Almost no one knows the details. No, the person who did was buried and forgotten. Irritated, Shinjo swerved the car around a group of pedestrians that were standing in the middle of the street. I ducked down so I couldn't be spotted from outside. It was a little cramped. Honestly, I feel like Steins Gate gives us the biggest window into, like, how much actual power and influence they have. Because, like, all of the Rounders and all of CERN and all of that stuff wasn't even directly the committee. That was, like, the committee, like, pulling strings on other things. So they had the power to orchestrate all that. Which is insane. Yeah. Like, I ducked down so it couldn't be spotted from outside. It was a little cramped, but to be fair, I don't think they individually... It's not like they're, like, superhumans or something. They don't have, like, power, but they do have insane influence and the ability to just get things done and cover things up. So, like, yeah. I ducked down so it couldn't be spotted from outside. A little cramped.
昼間言ってた
Was that the person you were
新庄
talking
さんの
about this?
先輩もです
Is
か
that the person you were talking about this afternoon? I remembered him talking about that, about how this case was his way of avenging a detective he respected a lot. Shinjo ignored me and kept looking forward. Felt like his silence was a yes. Oh no. Huh?
なんだ
What? Shinjo lowered the window just a crack to hear what was going on outside. Where are you? It's almost over! Oh, okay. Don't know for sure. That's true, we don't know, but like... From the best of my knowledge, the pure, like, terror and messed up aspect of it all is that they were just people. They were just people, extremely powerful, extremely corrupt, absolutely willing to do anything and everything with the huge amount of power they have to make sure that they and only they have it good. I feel like it's arguably scarier if they are just people than if they had some sort of power or something. But I don't know. Everybody's gonna think you're a screw-up. Everybody already thinks he's a screw-up. Okay, not everybody. Takeru Miyashiro, come out.
酔っ払いか
Just a bunch of drunks. In front of us, by the side of the road, was a van advertising the Restoration Festival. A group of people had climbed on top of it. They must have been college age, and they were holding beers in their hands.
情弱
Wrong ciders, huh? Yeah, they're functionally the Illuminati. Yeah. Hearing them or even seeing them was upsetting. I leaned back into the seat, closed my eyes, and lowered my head again.
久野里さんも
Kunosato
Tamani
uses that word too sometimes. Ah, of course she would. Shinjo closed the window and started to drive away from all the commotion.
情弱
Wrong-siders means on the wrong side of the information divide, right?
え
Yes. I watched all the drunks pass by the other side of the tinted windows.
彼らは知らないし
They don't know anything, and they don't want to know anything. They don't know about the people manipulating them or what those people want,
その相手
or
が
what the
どん
people
な
they're
気持ちな
talking
のか
about are going through. She's the only right-sider. Yeah, to be fair, so does Takaru. Well, no, he's getting better. He really has gotten better over the course of the game. Truly has. Kunosato hasn't. She absolutely lives in a world where she's the only right-sider. You're right, yeah? Violence, murder, the darkness in the human heart. Man, I could just hear that in Ansem's voice. They think they understand these things because they read or hear about them, but they don't even think about what they must really be like.
君は会った時から知るという行為にこだわっていたな
Why? It's like 3-4 times a night now. There's just a there must be somebody on my block who has just recently acquired a motorcycle, or it's finally warm enough for them to take it out. But it's like, stop. That's... Ever since I first met you, I could tell knowing was very important to you.
えっと
Thanks? First time I met Shinjo
ラブ
was
ホテルの事件の時
during the Love Hotel case. You broke into the crime scene on your own.
あ
Oh. To be fair, if I'm not streaming, I'd hardly even notice it. Like, I don't care, but, like, very much notice it when I'm streaming. He was right. Shinjo was the one in charge of that case, and that's how we'd met.
これから尾上に会おうとしているのは
That sucks.
何
Yeah.
かを知るためなんだろう
You're going to see Onoe because that's something you want to know, right?
はい
Bike game here as well. This seems like it's just a bike. But, like, if it happens in the afternoon, I don't care. Do what you want to do. But, like, it's 9 o'clock, which isn't that late, but I guarantee they're going by again. I had to know what Serica was really after, and the real reason she'd come into existence. That's right. You could say I'm going to find out about
自
myself.
分のことを知るため
What
な
had
んだ
I wanted during the earthquake? What wish had created her? I realized for the first time that I was trying to find out more about myself than Serica.
先輩も
That's the
So
same
nice
kind of
to look
person he was.
Huh?
Huh? I looked in the rearview mirror again. Shinji was still watching the traffic in front of him.
とにかく
That
知ろうと
detective,
すること
he
に
was
対し
obsessed
て
with
貪
finding
欲な
things
人だっ
out,
た
and he was willing to do whatever it
そ
took,
のためな
even
ら
if it meant going
世
against the
間の
rest of the
常
police
識
force.
よく百瀬さ
Momose
んに
used to
怒
get
られ
mad
て
at
い
him
たら
all
し
the
い
time. She said he was getting in too
突っ走りすぎだ
deep.
そうだったん
I
ですか
see. Shinjo's voice took on a strangely different character. His tone changed from one of nostalgia to one of sorrow.
そして
Then,
先輩は
he finally got in too deep. That was the answer to his silence before, too. Had he been killed by the committee?
先輩の最後を俺はよく
I
知ら
don't
な
know
い
how he died, but he must have been satisfied.
先輩は満
At
足だ
least,
った
I don't think he had any regrets.
でもな
But,
だからといって先輩の死を認めるわけに
still
はい
be
かない
spinning coins in alleyways,
俺は先
probably.
輩に追い
Yeah.
つけなかっ
He
たし
deserved better.
止めることもできなかった
Yep.
俺は
It doesn't mean I can just accept his death. I couldn't get to him in time, and I couldn't stop him. It's frustrating.
クルスノノさんがここにい
If
れば
Nono was... If Kurisu was here, I'm sure she'd be feeling the same way about you. I fell silent. There was nothing I could say. But I was truly glad that he was the one who read Nono's letter, and that he was the one who was helping me. When I reached the Hikariro, I realized that something was wrong. It was too quiet. Normally, even at this hour, the Hikariro would be fairly noisy, but it was completely silent. There were no murmurs, no drunken shouting like I'd heard just a moment ago.
始まっちまったか
It started, huh? Oh, I checked the time. Yeah, I'm also glad. 1:28 p.m. Everyone had gathered in front of the memorial park or the TVs in front of the station for a silent prayer. Shinzo switched the car's navigation system to TV mode. It was displaying footage of the memorial park. I saw the ceremony and gasped. All the sound was gone from Shibuya. It was like a movie set. Suddenly, I was struck by a terror even greater than before. Yeah, it wasn't any better, but yeah. But the moment of silence was for me as I headed to my death. I mean, who's to say it's not, but, you know. Forced myself to smile and tried to tell myself that I was shaking from excitement, not fear. Yeah, okay. My mind was a confused jumble of thoughts. Half of me wanted to go home, and half of me wanted to stay, but I forced myself to keep going. That's right. I have to know no matter what. Shinjo tossed something at me.
何ですか？
What is it?
Kore-
Wait, is this? I felt the sensation of rubber as I grabbed it. I tried to spread it out and stopped.
皮肉な話だが
Ironically, this is all I've got with me. I hope it's enough.
いえ、
No, thank
あ
you.
りがとうございます。
I lowered my head in thanks. There were still people standing between me and the theater cube.
すまないな
Sorry,
これはここま
this
で
is
だ
as far as I can go. I
沖君た
need
ちを
to get the others out of the
そろそろ
city. True, he can't. Yeah, the reasons are worse. He looked at his watch.
分かってます。
I know. Get them to Akihabara as quick as you can. Thank
送
you.
り届けたら俺
Once
は
they're
はすぐ
safe,
に
I'll
戻って
come
くる
right back. Don't die.
はい。
Right. I wiped my sweaty hands off on my pants and nodded. Then I took a deep breath to calm myself down. I put on the sumo sticker mask that Shinjo had given me and stepped out into a Shibuya utterly without sound. The silent prayer was continuing, and this was my chance. Several people looked at me as I got out of the car, but they must have be used to seeing people in the masks. They quickly lost interest and lowered their heads once more. Everything was fine. They hadn't figured out who I was. I like how he didn't plan for that. He was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna walk out of the car. I looked up at the Hikariro building, which towered above me like some kind of fortress. The people around me all seemed suspicious, but I made it to the theater floor without anyone seeing anything, or saying anything. But then I realized that something was wrong and stopped. There was no one on this floor. There were no customers, and not even a single employee. The bandage show, was it? Oh, yeah. Even the convenience store, which was open during the festival, was empty. I took off the mask. My field of vision restored, I took another look around the floor. I was right. It was completely empty. There was no sign of Serika or Dad either. The whole soundless space in front of me felt like a trap that I just walked into. Oh man, you're right, they could have. That would have been cruel. That would be the... It would technically not be spoilers, I guess, but it would be a way to really just freak out anyone who played the game. I'd taken the mask off, but it still hurt to breathe. I tossed the mask into one of the decorative trees nearby and slowly started to walk across the floor. Oh, you wouldn't hold on to it for like... he doesn't expect to leave, to be fair. Every shadow scared me. Each time I reached a blind spot, I would stare at it a moment before I proceeded. Where was the entrance to the theater?
Huh?
Oh. When I found the stairs and escalators, I felt a wave of nostalgia. This is where I'd come with the rest of Alba Dorm. That's right, I'd gone up the stairs and into the theater. I flinched as the escalator started to move. Don't scare me like that! It's just a motion detector, I knew that. Excuse me. But the machine seemed to be pulling me deeper into a trap. I looked up to the top of the escalator. There was no one there. Damn it. I smacked my trembling legs with trembling hands, then slowly went up the stairs. This was the path that led me to the theater, and it was probably leading me to the finale that either Dad or Serika had prepared for me. And I was probably doing exactly what one of them wanted. But I had to find Serika and the answer, and there was no way that desire was in anyone's script. It was my own. I thought... I had to find out the truth, for Nonoe's sake as much as my own. I went up to the entrance of the theater, put my hand on the heavy door. Huh? I felt a stabbing pain in my head the second I went inside. I staggered and leaned against the back of a nearby chair. What? This can't be. I forced myself to endure the pain and looked around the theater. The theater was done up in the modern style, with stadium seating. The stage was at the lowest point in the hall, and the seats got higher up the further you went away, so it would be easier for the audience to see. The entrance was at the far back, behind the seats. When I looked down, I could see the whole room. The stage was completely empty. There were no props or background. At least he didn't, yeah. The lights were focused on the stage, so the rest of the theater was dark and hard to see. The seats seemed empty too. I couldn't see anyone. I couldn't hear any movement either. My first suspicion was Dad's mind control power, but if his power worked like ours, that meant he would need to share his delusion with me in order to reboot them. In other words, if what I was seeing was due to mind control, Dad must be watching me from somewhere nearby.
そうだ。
That's right. I suddenly got an idea and looked through my pockets. I found the lollipop that Kazuki had given me. I tossed it up and imagined it floating in the air, but instead of floating, it fell down into the thin row between the seats.
よし。
Good. I sighed with relief, satisfied with what I'd seen. It was impossible for us to use our powers alone. If my psychokinesis wasn't working, it meant there was no one here. But I still kept my guard up as I walked towards the stage. If I remembered right, this place hadn't changed since the last time I was here. Come to think of it, if I'd come here to celebrate my acceptance to Hekiho Academy, it had only been 2.5 years since I'd last been here.
嘘だろ。
That can't be right. It didn't seem real. It felt like so much more time had passed. Everything had changed. Nono and Yui were gone. Yuto had probably left his home and was on his way to Akihabara with Shinjo right now. And Dad... Suddenly I heard a sound behind me and spun around. Standing there was... Hello?
お前。
You. She looked just like she had when had when I'd seen her this morning. Not only was she not hurt, there were no signs that she'd even fought. Sarika waited for the door she'd come through to close, and then slowly walked towards me.
なぜここにいる？
Why are you here? Her voice was quiet but angry. She probably thought that I'd left Shibuya.
父さんは。
Where's Dad?
死んだよ。
Dead? Really? What?
舞台裏に頭
You'll
だけ
find
転
his
がってい
severed
る。
head laying on the ground backstage. It's been partially crushed, so it might be hard to tell, though. The look on my face must have been ridiculous. Sarika's voice was completely calm, and it was hard to believe she was lying. Dad was dead? I don't know if I
お
believe.
前が。
Did you kill him? Her nod silently said, Of course I did.
それで、なぜこ
So,
こにいるん
why
だ？
are you here?
久野里
Where
宮
are
たち
Mio
はどうした？
Kunosato and the others? How could she be so calm after killing someone? It was terrifying to see how unconcerned she was. My thoughts, feelings, and even my words were a jumbled mess, but I managed to tell her that Shinjo had taken them all out of Shibuya by now. Yeah, like, she wasn't in a good state against it last time, and we know she had her arms start moving on her own, and he just had a massive headache when he entered this room, so there's clearly something suspicious here. If she wasn't in here, why would that have even happened? This is, yeah, I don't believe a word of it. And then I told her why I'd come. And also, she clearly would have known that telling him that and then cutting off would pique his curiosity too much for him to stay away. Why did you tell me that on the phone?
僕に何を望まれて。
What did I want from you when you were born? Also, happy birthday. Sarika looked at me as if she was staring at something very dear to her. I knew this feeling. Sarika was reading my mind. Suddenly, it appeared. Its design was far too complicated and intricate to be called a sword. It was sharp like metal, but it had a strange luster that was all its own. It was a D-sword, big enough to cover Sarika's entire upper body. It was what she used to kill Nono. You should have escaped with the others, Takuru Miyashiro. Beyond her blade, I could see a slight change in her expression. Of course.
お前。
Onoe? It was the same look I'd seen before when she was talking about Dad, as if she hated everything she saw. Sudden organ, Just as she jumped, I felt a burning heat in my right shoulder and fell to the ground. A moment later, I felt like a pain like nothing I'd ever experienced before. I grabbed my shoulder with my left hand and felt something nasty, warm and sticky. It was blood. I'd been cut. If I'd reacted even a moment later, she would have chopped my entire shoulder off. I looked up. Serika was already bringing her blade down. It's off to a great start, yep. I forced myself to twist out of the way, ignoring the blood spurting from my shoulder. This time the pain was in my left leg. I ignored it too, trying my best to get away. Serika walked over to me slowly. I must have bit something in my mouth when I rolled because I tasted something bitter and metallic. Why?
手遅れだった。
I was too late. I underestimated the committee. Serika stopped, close enough to strike me with her D-sword, and began to speak. Someone involved with Sakuma already made contact with me. There's nowhere left to run. I can't keep you alive. I don't want you to end up like the other victims. No way. That's why she was going to kill me? Just like she killed Nono with that D-sword? The pain from the cuts kept me from thinking, and the blood loss drained away my will to resist. I couldn't feel my left leg anymore, but I couldn't stop looking at Serika. I wasn't sure. Were there any important blood vessels around the calves? I'll be dead soon too. We can talk on the other side. Serika swung the D-sword at me. And then I felt something burst within me. Hey! Kaleido Klee! God. I always keep saying that wrong. Thank you so much for the heckin' subscription. Suddenly Titan. I always try to make my subscription notifications loud and impactful, and it's hilarious when they happen like that. Thank you so much for the subscription, though. I hope you've been enjoying some Chaos goodness, some Viperland goodness. Now you got a whole bunch of heckin' emotes, and all the sound effect commands as well. Titan burst from within you. True, that's what it was. Titan burst out from him. Finally, some Frau. The Frau is a very good one, I have to say. It was Ramen's idea to make the Frau emote, but it was my idea to animate it that way when I saw what they had for like animation options, and like, it's a great combo. It really is. The fact that it like tiles that way. But yeah, thank you. It's very much appreciated. I hope you're enjoying. That is the sound I would make if Titan burst out of me immediately, to be fair. I would make that exact sound. I leapt at Serika. I reached out my hand without thinking and felt something warm and rough. I heard a scream in my ears. By the time I'd realized I'd reached into the cut on her stomach and ripped out the stitches, I was already on top of her. Her D-sword had disappeared. My hand went for her neck. Ow, yeah. I mean, she didn't exactly leave him another choice, but I still don't like this. My fingers dug into her flesh. The only thing I saw was the red color dripping down the base of her neck. Was it my blood from when she cut my shoulder, or hers when I ripped open her stomach? Or had my nails broken the skin on her neck? Whatever it was red, and it was spreading. I couldn't stop myself from gripping tighter. My fingers dug deeper and deeper, and the soft sensation of her skin began to recede. Instead, I felt thick muscle and hard bone. Nah, it's too late, Sora. There's no going back. When it was all over, the pain in my leg and shoulder was gone. No, it was still there, but it didn't feel like my own pain. It's like I was watching myself on top of Serika from a distance. Yeah, that was the last one. If anything, you broke the game and caused this, Sora. When I took my hands off her neck, that feeling disappeared and everything else came flooding back. Serica's eyes had rolled up into her head, and her tongue was sticking out of her mouth. I felt an unpleasant wetness in my underwear. It was her blood from when it sat on her. The blood was pouring out from the gash in her stomach. Serica wasn't moving anymore. Did I kill her? Did I strangle her to death? I suddenly felt the urge to vomit. Yeah. Bots, yeah, I very much hope they are. Why? What was I doing on top of Serica? Why were my hands covered in blood? My head hurt. My field of vision was red. My heart was pounding hard, and under me was the body of the girl I'd created. It cradled my head in my bloody hands. It hurt so much it felt like it was going to burst. My eyes hurt too. Everything was turning red. Yeah, probably just a slight bit of control here. Huh? Suddenly my vision cleared. The lights above the stage seemed impossibly bright, like the sun at the end of a tunnel. Ow. There was a pain in my eyes. I reached out my hand and my fingers were covered in pink tears. Then I realized, Serica wasn't here. My fingers weren't covered with blood. I twisted my neck to look at my shoulder. My clothes weren't even cut. There wasn't a single wound on my leg either. What was going on? You know what's going on. You're smarter than that. I was sitting on the ground alone by the seats near the entrance. You're an asshole, you know that? I never raised you to be like that. I leapt up to my feet. Nah, it's delusions all the way down. Oh, great.
父さん
Dad? Dad was up on the stage. He was standing in the center, like the lead singer at a musical. And at his feet...
お前
Yeah, Serica, the girl I thought I'd just killed, was lying at his feet. There was no blood on her clothes, and the cut on her stomach hadn't been torn open. But she must have been unconscious because she wasn't moving. Yes? Did you not know so? Yeah. 100%. He's got the mind control powers. So... And this would probably be an amplification device. Even when you just about killed her in the delusion, she didn't resist at all. Ain't that cute? I suddenly understood what was going on. Yes. No kidding. But when? When you entered the room? Was I already under its effects when I came into the theater? Yes! When I came inside, I felt a sharp pain and my vision had blurred for a moment. Yeah! Carefully, casually missed the main antagonist. Yeah, Sora's only here for the lewd. If there's no lewd, it's like, psh, whatever. When I tested my powers with the lollipop, was I already under a spell? Clearly! The pain and heat had felt so real, but it was all an illusion? But I could still feel the sensation of wringing Serica's neck. If you just let her kill you, it would have broken you. It would have broken you here too. Dad tapped his own heart. But instead you chose to kill her? What's up with that, Takeru? Girls don't like boys who get violent. Hearing Dad talk in the same tone he always did was almost enough to get me to let my guard down. Excuse me. But this wasn't the man I knew. The man on the stage wasn't the Dad I knew. What is that machine? I took a good look at it. Dad was holding some kind of backpack, and I could see some kind of device inside. What is he carrying? Excuse me. Star Wars Solution, lewd groping, lewd sister. Yeah, those happened. Dad was wearing a piece of headgear that connected to it. And the long cylindrical machine he was holding was connected to it by a cord. So that's it. If he had psychic powers like we did, then he had to have one too. That was Dad's D-sword. That looks like a Keyblade. Come on. That's a Keyblade. Or a Dark Knight sword, painted gold, but that's a Keyblade, right? Like the heart motif on it, the crossed lines, like that's so like just Kingdom Hearts. But why did he have it? I thought that those powers only appeared in brains that were still developing during the earthquake. That style. It's got a heart, yeah. My research has shown that this only occurred in the young, whose brains were still developing, particularly those experiencing something that put them in states of extreme stress. That's what Kunosato had said. Oh, this? Dad saw what I was looking at, and tapped his backpack with the D-sword. Amazing, huh? One of the results of our research. It lets even normal people like me have powers similar to a Gigalomaniac's. Oh, so he doesn't even have powers, he just has a Noah device. This was a terminal for a certain machine. That machine used to be here, but it ran into some trouble. That's what caused the earthquake. Those were bad times. Dad sounded like a child whose favorite toy had been broken. Oh. It was clear he didn't care at all about the people who died, or whose lives had been ruined during the earthquake. Because of that, I lost my job. No money, no employees. It took me 6 years to put it back together. Those idiots in the committee. Committee, hold on, let me just call my friend. So that was how he'd been able to do that to Ito. Oh, another great scene. And how he'd been able to kill Yui. I felt a mix of rage, sorrow, and hate. All the feelings were so strong I wanted to scream. Well, it doesn't matter. Once I deal with you, I can go back to my research. It was as if he was picking just the right words to make me even angrier. To be honest, I was a little worried. Nonoe came here on her own. I needed you, not her, so I thought I had a problem on my hands. Yup. He looked down at her and poked her with the artificial D-sword. Still, she didn't move. Couldn't be. Was Serika... She's dead, obviously. Funny, ain't it? He seemed to say. Even when I put her under mind control and had her fight you in her delusion, she put her D-sword away and didn't resist right up until the moment you killed her. It's amazing how much she cared about you. He kicked her hard enough that she turned over. Stop it. You, though, you were amazing. You were consumed with rage over losing Nono, and I just gave that a little boost, and then you killed her without mercy. It's amazing how much you cared about Nono, too. I could feel my whole body getting hot. Stop it. Don't say Nono's name, not with that face, not with that voice. The hell are you thinking? Huh? The way Dad's expression didn't change at all only made me madder. Did he really not understand? We'd all lived together for years, right? We'd come here as a family, hadn't we? Yuto and Yuki are worried about you. Oh, what? You haven't told them yet? Yui always trusted you, and Nono. Started with what you said when I was helping Takeru with his physical therapy. You're doing a great job for someone who hasn't gone to school. I'm impressed. I'm sure that's just the way a father is. I love the rules you made for our family. Thank you. Please don't drink too much. She believed in you. She thought you were part of our family. So what are you thinking? My words echoed off the walls of the theater and came back to me again and again. Then I realized that I was the same way. I believed in Dad too, from the bottom of my heart. But he... Dad chuckled and scratched his head, like I'd seen him do many times before. It was the same thing he'd done when Nono was scolding him at home. Takeru, do you have anything you enjoy doing? Huh? There's gotta be something you like, right? There's no point in living otherwise. What is he talking about? That wasn't what I asked. At least you didn't know. Why did you kill Yui? Why did you kill Nono? Huh? Your friend killed Yui, and this girl killed Nono. Shut up! Oh, scary. The hell was so funny? I clenched my hands into fists, my grip so tight in my rage that my nails dug into my skin. How are you capable of doing this? It doesn't make sense. Don't get so mad, okay? I just told you. You need to have fun. What the hell does that mean, though? I think it's pretty clear. I had great expectations for you. You were so broken that you were capable of real-booting a complete human being. I was looking forward to seeing how far you could go, how crazy you could become. Huh? If a Gigalomaniac like you started doing whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted to do it, it would be amazing. You could wreck the whole world. It'd be hilarious. Couldn't wait to see it. So I observed, calculated, theorized, did more experiments. Can't wait to see what lies at the end of that loop. Isn't it exciting, Takaru? Dad kept using the same voice he'd always used at home, but I wasn't hearing a word. The anger inside me just kept building. What I'm saying is this: no matter what happens, do what you think is fun. Think of it as a life lesson from your dad. Dad, you're not my dad! I screamed, but Dad kept smiling. Anyway, to me, Gigalomaniac research is the most fun thing in the world. There's nothing else that's so entertaining. That's your answer. But that can't be... Literally, why did you do all this? That was fun. That was the only reason? The only reason he'd worked for the committee, the only reason he'd done those horrible experiments in the basement. And the reason he did that to Yui, Nono, Ito, and all the others? How many times do I have to tell you? Because it was fun. Whew, yeah. The next thing I knew, I was running. The D-sword appeared in my hand instantly. It had no weight, but I could feel it was there. I listened to the blade's roar as I ran down the corridor. And swung it upwards at the bastard on the stage. Oh. Yeah, but no, we got a much better Taku. There was a high-pitched noise and a brilliant light, and I stopped. My hand went numb for a second. The mechanical D-sword had blocked my swing. Here. Dad's muscles bulged like thick ropes as he swung his giant D-sword down at me. I barely managed to block it, but the impact knocked me back from the front row seats, back into the front row seats. There was a sharp pain in my arm. It had been cut a little. It was a delusion before, but this time real blood was running down my arm. Wait, are you really thinking about getting in a fight with me? With your strength? Dad didn't move a step. He raised the giant D-sword onto his shoulders. His huge body was at least 185 centimeters tall, and he towered over me from the stage like a wall. Well, I guess I can play with my son once in a while. It's not fair to give the girls all the attention. Come on up. I do wish we had more than a single corpse for an audience, but what can you do, huh? Then he kicked Serika's unmoving body once more. I felt anger, but also an indescribable despair. What was I doing here? I'd come to find out the truth from Serika, but I'd killed her myself. There was no reason for me to be here anymore. So didn't that mean there was no reason to try and fight Dad? No, it wouldn't even be a fight. Probably just get myself killed. So maybe... When Serika had cut open my leg before, it had only been an illusion. I could run to the exit. If I caught him off guard, I could escape, maybe? But... Damn it all. I went forward. I hadn't done any real exercise since my physical therapy 6 years ago. Dude, same. Vision of Nono and Yui flashed through my mind. And for some reason, I saw Serika smiling, like she used to do when we were in the newspaper club. What's wrong? Come on up to the stage. The audience is getting bored. When I looked at him, I suddenly had an idea in the corner of my mind. I remembered what he'd said, that the machine on his back was what gave him his power, that he was an artificial Gigalomaniac. I mean, the fact that he told you that means he's gotta expect you to strike at it, right? Just 6p and he'll be good. I mean, that only gives him upper body. Oh, he aimed for his arm. You're right, it would work. Then what if I could get rid of that machine? If he swipes for the legs, you're in trouble though. I might be able to do it. No, I have to do it. I stood and climbed up onto the stage. The lights shone down upon my head. I could hear a non-existent crowd screaming for my death from the empty seats. I readied the D-sword. My hand still felt a little numb. Hey, looking like a hero, Takaru. Good stuff. Took a step to the side, trying to look as natural as possible. If he's going to use this D-sword... By moving to the side, I was able to see part of the device on his back. I hit him with my power as hard as I could. Huh? Dad heard a noise behind him and turned around. I had a clear view of the machine. Now! I concentrated harder and hit him with more of my power. Ah, you asshole! Dad howled like a wild animal and swung his D-sword, but I didn't stop. As long as I can destroy that machine... Well... Unless somebody somehow magically gets resistance to mind control, you can't win. Huh? My vision suddenly blurred. I felt a cold wind on my cheek, and I could see the city in the distance. Where was I? On top of the school? Damn it. More mind control. I panicked and tried to use my D-sword. Huh? Oh, always gonna be broken, yeah. It was gone. The D-sword had disappeared. What the hell, damn it? I concentrated as best I could. I imagined the pale light of the sword. Come on, come on. Couldn't see him or sense him, but Dad was probably right in front of me with this huge D-sword. But I couldn't make my D-sword appear. I couldn't see it. I couldn't find it. It was always supposed to appear when I imagined it. What did he want to talk about, Non? Oh. Serica was standing there on the roof. And so was... Don't try and fool me. With your power, you know exactly what I want to talk about, right, Serica? Who's Nono? Nono was standing in front of me talking. Nono's alive? Nono is... No, that's not right. My sense of logic dispelled the hope that was forming in my mind. This was mind control. Dad's power was causing me to hallucinate. The two of them were right in front of me, but didn't seem to know I was there. So you knew Nono Kurisu? Yes. Suddenly, Serica changed. The smiling, happy girl from the newspaper club disappeared. She became a cold, remorseless killer. Stop it, Onoe. I knew I was being mind-controlled, but I couldn't help myself. Excuse me. I felt a cold chill in my heart, and all the hairs on my body stood up on end. Then you must know what's coming next, right? Serica's D-sword appeared in her hand. Nono didn't seem surprised. She just glared at Serica. Stop it. Stop it, Serica. Are you going to kill Takaru too? No, I'll keep him alive. That's why I exist. I don't believe you. That's why I'm going to stop you, even if it kills me. I thought you'd say that. That's why you're in the way. Don't! I screamed as Serica stepped forward. There was no sign that she heard me. Yeah, I tried to summon my D-sword, but it didn't work. Yeah, tried to get between the two of them. And I realized I couldn't move. My legs felt like they were frozen to the ground. Why? But my head was clear. I couldn't let this happen. I knew I had to stop it, but... Serica and Nono's D-swords slammed into each other. There was a flash so bright I was forced to close my eyes. And Nono's D-sword cracked. You made a mistake. I can see exactly what you're thinking. Can't believe you still thought that I was your friend. Serica kept going forward. There was no hesitation on her face. No, don't! No matter how much I screamed, they didn't hear me. I couldn't move. Serica crossed right in front of me, carrying her gigantic, deadly weapon. There is no friendship within me. And in the next moment, it felt like Nono looked at me. And then, Serica's D-sword ran her through. And suddenly, I was seeing something else. I felt a cold wind on my cheek, and I could see the city in the distance. Huh? I could hear a sob. I'd been crying without realizing it. I looked around, forgetting even to wipe the tears from my cheeks. The roof was lit by the moon. There was nothing here. There was no one here. Of course, there was no sign of Serica or Nono's body. Then, what was that? Calm down. Calm down. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, yeah. It's two broken powers. Yeah, well, she went there knowing she wasn't going to win. She knew that was it. It's all mind control, all just a hallucination. It was a fake vision that my dad had created. That's right, it was just like a movie, it had to be. Nono died at Serica's hand. Serica had killed Nono. That really had happened, I'd seen it. But it wasn't happening now. It was all part of the past, there was no changing it. What do you want to talk about, None? Who? Don't try and fool me with your power. You know exactly what I want to talk about, right, Serica? Again? The two of them were standing there just as they were before. So you knew Nono Kurisu. Yes. Then you must know what's coming next, right? Are you going to kill Takeru too? No, I will keep him alive. That's why I exist. I don't believe you. That's why I'm going to stop you, even if it kills me. Yeah, yet, Ramen. Yet. Thought you'd say that. That's why you're in the way. The two of them played out the exact same scene as before. There's still no sign that they'd noticed me. My heart began to pound loudly again. I remembered how it felt to hold Nona's body in my hands. The smell of her blood, and the way the warmth drained from her body. And the way her eyes would never look at me again. Calm down, I tried to tell myself that again and again. This is part of the past. Screaming won't change it. No. Maybe this wasn't even part of the past. I hadn't heard this conversation. Everything except the fact that Serica had killed Nono might be a hallucination that my dad had created. I tried to run away, growing ever more frustrated at my unmoving legs, but nothing worked. That's right, the real me wasn't even here. I was on top of the stage, trapped in a hallucination with Dad and his gigantic D-sword standing right in front of me. You made a mistake. I can see exactly what you're thinking. I can't believe you still thought that I was your friend. Serica raised her D-sword and advanced. It was coming back. I never wanted to go through that again, but it was coming back. I looked away. No, I tried to look away, but my head wouldn't move. I couldn't take my eyes off it. Nono looked at me. Takeru, what are you doing here? What? Serica killed Nono again. Happy Taku tongues. And then I found myself back at the beginning once more. On the cold, moonlit roof, I wrapped my arms around my body tightly, trying to warm myself against the freezing air. What was that? Nono had looked at me. I'd seen her looking at me, I was sure of it. She'd seen me? No, that was impossible. I wasn't really here. But that was Nono's voice I'd heard, and she'd been looking at me. If I was a real gigalomaniac, did that mean I had the power to change the past? That was true. Was that the real Kurzu, not a hallucination?
落ち着け
Calm down, calm down.
落ち着くんだ
My head hurt, and I was losing the ability to think. No, this was an illusion. It was all an illusion. There's no way I could change the past.
何のんちゃん
What did you want to talk
話
about,
って
Noan?
白々しいわ
Don't...
ね
Yeah,
あなたなら聞かな
it's the same stuff. On my third time seeing the exact same thing, I finally closed my eyes. Stop it. I don't want to see Nono die anymore. I put my hands over my ears to block out the sound, but I could hear them speaking the same words. The last conversation Nono would ever have flowed directly into my head.
見込み違いだったなまだ私の中に友情な
I didn't have to look to know what was happening. I knew the expressions on their faces. I knew the looks in their eyes. The angle that Serica held her D-sword at, and even how she was going to swing it. I knew it all.
タクル
Takeru, why won't you
どう
save
して
me?
助けてくれないの
I felt warm blood splash in my face the second I closed my eyes. There was no time even to scream. I kept my eyes closed tight, but I could feel the wind on my cheeks again. I was stuck frozen on that roof again. The muscles in my face had tensed up. There was nothing funny happening, but I was letting out a noise that sounded like laughter. My teeth were chattering.
何のんちゃん話白々しいわね
I covered my ears, but their words went right into my brain.
わか
I
る
didn't
んで
know
し
how
ょ
I could possibly be any more confused. What was that? Why was Nono in front of me?
なぜ
Why won't you answer me?
いや
Stop
やめ
it. I didn't want to open my eyes. I wanted to keep them shut. But for some reason, the moment Nono was killed, they opened on their own. Nono kept dying in front of me. Nono had taken care of me and kept me safe before I'd even woken up from my coma. From my perspective, that was before I'd even known her. She was a part of my family. She was the only big sister I had, and she kept dying over and over.
なぜ
Why do I have
私
to
が死な
die?
なければならないの
My head hurt, but the pain didn't even work as an anchor to keep my mind connected to reality. This Nono was a hallucination, I knew that. But the words she said were ripping apart my mind.
なぜ
Why
ユイ
didn't
を
you
助
save
けてくれ
Yui?
なかったのなぜ
Why did you try and solve the case at
事件を追いかけ
all?
たりしたの
Nono looked at me and kept asking, were those her last words before she was killed? Her dying screams, her final message? No more. I didn't want to see her die anymore. Please, stop it. My eyes were closed, but I could see her death repeated again and again in my mind. The D-sword running through her chest, the blood everywhere, the tiny sounds coming out of her throat like air leaking from a bag. Her blood was hot when it landed on my face. It didn't have that metallic smell, but it was hot. I couldn't tell anymore. Was this really a hallucination? Maybe this was the real Nono. Maybe this is what she'd really thought? Why didn't you save me? Why didn't you save Yui? Why did you try and solve the case at all? I told you not to do anything dangerous. I told you not to get revenge.
お前の
It's your fault.
せいだ
He does. There is currently no one left to hug him. I heard a sound somewhere. It was the sound of something snapping. I didn't want to see anymore. I didn't want to hear anymore. I didn't want to feel anymore. I closed off my mind, wanting nothing more than that.
おいおい、そこで殻に閉じ
Come
込めるな
on,
よ。
don't go into your shell
罪
now.
の意
I'm
識
sick
だ
and
けで
tired of
立ち止
seeing
ま
you
るお
stop
前なん
moving
ざ
because of
もう見飽
guilt.
きてんだ。
I heard a voice from somewhere, speaking directly into my head. But I held my hands over my ears anyway. I didn't want to hear anything.
しょうがない
Fine.
な。
I'll have to make it so you
な
can't
ら
stop
ウ
then.
ッドバーンヘロンは知ってるか
You ever heard of Woodburn
じゃあ
heroin?
また1ヶ月後に
Anyway,
な。
see you in a month.
楽
Have
しく
fun
食われろ
breaking.
よ。
And then, like a computer monitor being powered off, everything disappeared. What? What was this? It was the dark. I couldn't see anything. I was in a huge, dark, empty space like nothing I'd ever experienced. I couldn't even tell if my eyes were open or not. I tried blinking, but the darkness didn't change. Tried to rub my eyes to see if that helped, but my hands wouldn't move. No, not just my hands, nothing moved. Huh? There was no sensation of standing. There was no feeling of weight in my body. Was I lying down? No. Was I floating? It was like being in zero gravity or floating in water with no resistance. Like my body was drifting along. The only thing that existed was the quiet. I could hear the sound of my heart echoing. But even in the overwhelming darkness, I felt a little better. Anything was better than seeing Nono die again and again. Didn't matter what. Compared to hearing Nono's last words over and over. Did nothing but float there. It was like being almost asleep, but there was something stopping me from falling asleep altogether. It felt weird and unpleasant. I tried to at least do something about the floating, but there was nothing to grab onto, nowhere to stand, and my body wouldn't move. I wanted something solid. I tried my best to find it. Suddenly I realized, where was I? What was I doing here? No. This was more mind control. This darkness was another hallucination. Ooh-ah? Tried to scream and wave my arms, but there was no sound and no movement. If I couldn't move, I at least wanted to feel something with one of my senses. It could be a bright light, screaming, even pain. An awful bitter taste, or even a horrible smell. If I didn't find something fast, I'd lose track of where I ended and the darkness began. I know. What about my shoulder injury from when my dad had knocked me into the seats? I desperately tried to feel the pain in my shoulder, but it didn't work. I couldn't feel anything, even whether or not it was bleeding. It felt like the darkness was gradually burying me, like ants swarming on a piece of candy. The boundary line between my own body and the rest of the world got even blurrier. No way. I finally remembered a certain piece of information. Yeah, of course. Well, it was, I feel like once, it's kind of like time travel in the sense of like, once anybody with any amount of power gets a hold of it, like, you're doomed. Like, yeah, in theory you could do well with the ability to just like create things from thin air, but it was never going to go well long, ever. I finally remembered a certain piece of information. I remembered what my dad said just before this happened. Woodburn Heron, was it? I matched the name with what was going on. That was a famous experiment, if I remembered right. Heron's sensory deprivation experiment. You'd put a subject in a sound-treated room that was completely silent, then blindfold them so they couldn't see, then tie them up with a straitjacket kept at exactly their body temperature to take away their sense of touch. Except for eating simple meals and defecating, they were kept on a bed at all times. The experiment he'd done was to see how long they could last. The results had been far less than what he'd expected. The most any of them could endure was 2 or 3 days. The worst ones would complain of disturbed thinking after only a few hours. If they continued with the experiment anyway, they would start hearing and seeing things and almost go mad. A human being can't endure long periods of time with no stress or stimulation. The experiment was banned now because of its dangerousness. I remembered something else, something terrifying. What had my dad said? See you in a month? I was supposed to spend a month like this? I screamed, but I couldn't hear my voice. The first change was to my sense of vision. It was about after 2 days had passed, but by my reckoning, it would have been about dinner time. I wasn't sleepy or hungry. At some point I just began to count numbers. 1 second, 2 seconds. I believe that. I definitely know about, like, sensory deprivation used for, like, therapeutic purposes, but I vaguely recall that being a thing. I didn't know the name associated with it. It was meaningless, but I felt like I'd go mad if I didn't do something. When I just about passed 100,000 seconds, the darkness in front of me suddenly began to shine. What? Who's there? It wasn't a camera flash or a light bulb, it was just a blurry glow. That was all. I couldn't see anything else or even move. When I saw it, I lost track of my number and started over. The light came every 100,000 seconds. A day was 60 times 60 times 24, so 86,400 seconds? Perfect. I decided to round up and call each 100,000 seconds a day. When there was no light, I was bored. I wished so many times for something to happen. Someone, come here. Even Dad, I didn't care. I'd rather be fighting a battle with the D-swords than that I knew I couldn't win. No, actually, I'd rather be stabbed with the D-sword. I wanted to feel pain. I thought that when the light came for the 30th time I could escape, because that would mean a month had passed. A month was 30 days. But nothing happened. The light just kept coming at the same pace as before. When the light came again after 30 days passed, I stopped counting how many times it had come. Stopped counting 200,000 too. What's the point of counting anyway?
数えるの
You're going to
や
stop
めてしまう
counting?
の
No, no. I heard that clearly. I started hearing voices sometimes when I neared the 30th appearance of the light. You're just going to die like this? What's Miyashiro Park like? Hey, Miyashiro, how do you know again? Adios, gracias. Why did you leave me to die? You idiot, you're just going to die here. The newspaper club's just getting started, right? Tell me, why didn't you save me? It hurt so much when I died. You ever heard of Wordburn Heron? The voices came and disappeared without listening to my responses. I at least wanted to see their faces. I was already starting to forget what everyone looked like. Maybe if I saw them again, I could stop the darkness from swallowing up all my memories.
ここから出してあげる
I'll let you out of here. I'll go kill Dad for you. Really?
行ってきた
I tried, but it didn't work. I couldn't do it alone.
私たち手伝い
Should we
ましょう
help? Really? You'll do that for me? Don't underestimate the power of a teenage girl. Adios, gracias. Wait,
どうしたの
what's wrong, Brother Takaru? No,
まさか一人じゃ寂しい
don't tell me you're lonely all by yourself. Give me a break.
てよ
That's not true. Of course I'm not lonely. No, I wanted to tell you to be careful. Dad's power is... What was it again?
どうした？
What's wrong?
悪魔は
Where's
どこにいる
Sakuma?
んだよ
I。can't go kill him if I don't know.
さっさと言え
Tell me, you're
時
wasting
間の
time.
無駄だ
That's strange. He should be right there. Huh? There? Where's there?
あの
Takaru, have you ever heard of Wordburn?
ヘロンって知
Heron?
ってますか
Ha! Don't you know I'm a right-sider? Of course I know. He's the guy who came up with the theory that a day is 86,400 seconds. Huh? Amazing, right? I was slowly breaking and melting away. Extremely mentally impaired for a while. Yeah, I believe it. Suddenly I felt something stabbing me somewhere. It was the pain I'd been longing for, but I didn't care anymore. I was just tired of it.
殺してあげる
I'll kill you. No, please don't stab me.
なぜ
Why? I don't want to die.
どうして
Why? Because it hurts.
痛みなんて感じ
I'm
て
not
ない
feeling
じゃ
any
ない
pain. Takaru, are you really
タ
there?
クル
Nono kept stabbing me, as if she was trying to find out where I was.
本当にそ
When
こ
that sound
にいる
finally
の
stopped, I heard a wet slopping noise. I could tell her hands were jammed inside my body, rummaging through my guts. I could imagine the blood. But Nono was right. I didn't feel any pain. That's strange. It hurt a moment ago. Nono, let me see you. I'm sorry. You can kill me if you want.
なぜ
Why? Because I want to see you. I want to see anybody. I'm lonely. Nono? Nono? Why? Why did you leave? No, wait. Is that really Nono? Is that Nono's voice? Did she really talk like that? Wait a second. What was Nono's last name? That orphanage. I was blanking out on the place name. There were two sisters there. What were their names? Or, wait, was it a brother and sister? Everything was turning black. Who was that girl who always told me not to lie? Who was the one in the white lab coat? The one who didn't talk? The one who always seemed scared? Who'd been stabbing me a moment ago?
わからないの
You don't know.
ひどい先輩
You're a terrible person, aren't you? Shut up, shut up. Suddenly, the noises started to bother me. I didn't want to be criticized by these people when I didn't even know their names. Please, somebody kill... Ow. I was surprised by a sudden fierce pain in my head. Thud, thud. I could feel the blood flowing into my head. How many months had it been since I felt pain so clearly like this? Now, how many years, or maybe decades?
いつまで
How long are you going to keep doing that? It hurt a lot more for me. I said, shut up. All of you, shut up. I screamed back at the voices. I don't know who you people are. All of you just disappear. Save me. Save me.
助けて
I said someone's name. Everything became better. All the voices disappeared and the pain in my head was gone.
タク
Taku,
タク
are you okay?
大丈
Huh? No, a face.
怪我は平気だね
You're not... Nope. You're not hurt? Nope, you're good. She was right next to me, as if that was the most natural place in the world for her to be.
おのえ
Onoe, what are you doing here?
お
Hmm? I'm always by your side,
私はいつも
Taku. That was impossible. When my dad used his mind control on me, I'd killed her.
そうだ
That's right.
僕が
I remembered. Dad had used his mind control on me. In the theater cube in the Hikariwo. So this was all just
僕の
a delusion of mine. Yep, just like old
昔み
times,
たいだ
huh?
ね
Sarika laughed. I don't know why.
で
So, how do you like it?
何が
What?
思考誘導
Mind control. How's it feel?
なかなかだよ
Unpleasant. It's pretty rough.
そう
Yeah, it looks pretty
結構
comfy.
心地よさ
You
そう
don't
だ
get
けど
hungry either, right?
お腹も空かないでしょ
Sarika looked around into the empty void. She was acting like she'd just come over to check out a friend's new house.
お前な
Listen, you know how much it sucks not being able to move if it ever happened to you.
体を動かせないのがどん
うー
Sure, I don't think I could handle it, but
私は耐えら
you
れ
went
そ
through
う
that during
に
your
ないけ
physical
ど
therapy, right?
あの時は動かそ
I
うと
tried
す
to
る
move
たびに
back then,
ちゃ
I
んと
felt
痛みが
pain.
走った
Even if I wasn't moving, it felt like I was trying to move.
うー
Hmm.
んそういう
Is
も
that how it
の
works? Sarika tilted her head at
これ
me. What's happening on the other side?
向こ
The other side?
現実だよ
Reality. I
つ
mean,
まり
the me in the
シア
theater
ターキューブにいる
cube.
僕だ
I'm probably lying on the ground
Sure,
after he
you
used his
don't
mind
get it.
control on me, right?
多分倒れてるだろ
Didn't even have the slightest idea how much time had passed, but it had to have been much longer than a day or two. The Restoration Festival was probably long since over, and I might have starved to death.
うそれはないんじゃないかな
I don't think so. If you're talking with me right now, that means you're alive, right?
そうだけど
That's true, but
情報をまとめて理屈
you're
で
the
考
one who always
えろ
talked about how you had to put your
いつも言
information
ってるの
together
は
and
タ
think
コだぞ
things through logically, right? Oh,
こっちと向こ
so
うの
maybe
時間
time
が
flows
違う
differently
と
here
か
and on the other side? That's right, that's possible.
ひなちゃんたちは
What
ど
happened
う
to
した
Hina and the
の
others?
ひなちゃん
Hina? Oh, right. Hine Arimura. How had I forgotten about her?
新庄さんたちと
I
一緒に
think she escaped Shibuya with Shinjo and the others.
トチって
Who are
誰
the
誰
others? Uki and
Uki-chan.
Yuto and
久野里さん
Kunosato.
あれれ
Huh?
Hana-chan
What about
は
Hana?
あいつは事件
She
と直
was
接関係
wasn't
ないか
directly
ら
involved in the case, so I had her stay in Shibuya.
そっか
I see. And then Sarika started asking me one question after another. Did I really not move? Was the light I sometimes saw a hallucination? Were the voices I heard imaginary? I took a long time answering each one in as much detail as possible. I had plenty of time after all. And just the act of having a conversation was wonderful. It was something I'd done all the time in my daily life and at the newspaper club. Come to think of it, who had first used the phrase, "You don't know what you've got till it's gone," and when did they use it?
わかんないよ
I don't know. I should have brought my
ポケモン持ってくれ
Pokecom
ばよ
maybe.
かったかな
I laughed a little, though I wasn't sure if Sarika was serious or joking. Each time I would answer one of her questions, Sarika's expression would change. She'd laugh or get mad, and sometimes she'd even try to correct me. She really did seem like a normal person, but
何
what is it?
お前
It used to be a delusion of
昔は
mine.
僕の妄想
You
で
didn't really exist.
うー
Ah, you found
バレ
out,
ちゃっ
huh?
たか
She acted just like a kid who'd been caught while playing hide and seek.
他の人からは
How did it
どう
look
見
to
えてた
other
んだ
people? If she wasn't real, I must have spent all my time as a kid talking to empty air.
どうって
I
見たまん
think
ま
it
だ
was
と
just like
思
you're
うけど
thinking.
でもさ
But not
私
that
と
many
タク
people
が
saw
一
us
緒にい
together,
る
right?
ところなん
Just your
て
parents
こんな
mostly.
に見あと
Oh,
病院
and
の地下で
Senri
千
in the
里ちゃ
hospital
んに
basement.
か
That was a screw up.
あれは
That's how No one
失敗
found me
したな
out, you know. That's right. Sarika and I spent almost all of our time in my room. I'd never been to her house. No, according to Kunosato, her house didn't
言っ
exist.
てくれればよかったの
You
に
should have told me.
そういうわけ
I
にはい
couldn't
か
do
ない
that.
よ
She laughed, but she seemed a little bothered.
でも
But what
あの
about that
時は
one
どうだっ
time?
たんだ
う
渋谷地震
The Shibuya earthquake.
ああ
Oh. I remembered carrying Sarika through the hell that was post-earthquake Shibuya. But if she'd only just been born when I had that headache, when I was in the Yoyogi shelter, I hadn't been really carrying her on my back at all. Only then did I remember why I was here. It wasn't to talk about old times.
うん
I don't know,
よくわか
but
んない
maybe
け
it
ど
just seemed a little off.
でもちょっ
Not
と
much worse than
変
that.
くらい
I
に
was
しか見え
unconscious,
て
so he
な
didn't
かっ
really
たと
talk to
思
me
うよ
much. And with everything else going on, I don't think anybody cared if you're talking to yourself or walking a little funny. Huh? Taku? Huh?
どうしたの？
What's wrong?
いや
Nothing, he lied. I could have moved my body. I would have been looking straight back into Serika's eyes.
お前を生み出した時
When I created you, what did I want from you?
それはね、
You know,
わか
I'm
んない
not
よ。
sure. She didn't seem surprised or upset at
だ
all.
って今
I
の
only
私
know
は
what you
過
know
去の知っ
right
てる
now.
ことしか知らない。向こうの彼女しか知
And
ら
only
な
the
い
me
こ
in
と
the
だ
real
もん。
world knows the answer to that. Yeah, that's right. The Serika in front of me might look alive, but she was really just a delusion of mine. She wouldn't know anything I didn't know. I'd created her again to help me get through this torture. She was just... Oh.
お？
Huh? And when I realized it, I was disgusted with myself. Felt so pathetic that I wanted to cry. How could I be so shameless? I killed the real Serika. Even if it was a trap created by Dad's mind control, I still killed her with my own hands. She'd almost killed me, and then I'd lost control and killed her instead. I'd torn open her stomach injury, then strangled her. Saying I'd been mind controlled was just an excuse. The rage and desire to kill her I'd felt had been real. Even without the mind control, if the same thing happened in reality, I'd do it again. I'd kill her.
だけど尾上は
But Onoe was different. Even when the imaginary me tried to kill her, she'd chosen to die rather than resist, unlike me. But then I'd wished for her again, just like I'd done during the Shibuya earthquake. I'd come to her for help again. Couldn't handle the darkness on my own, so I created her. I could not imagine a worse person than myself.
別に気に
I
する
can.
ことないよ。
Taku won.
私ここ
You
にいら
shouldn't
れ
let
て
it bother
楽し
you,
い
you
も
know?
ん。
I'm having fun. Enough, stop it.
タクが呼んでくれなかっ
If
た
you
ら
hadn't called me
話
here,
す
we
ことも
wouldn't
で
get
き
to
なかっ
talk.
たし。
Don't tell me exactly what I want to hear. Come to think of it, Serika had always been like that, ever since I was little. Even when I was neglected, she was always jealous of me. She always made me think that I was better off than she was. Whenever I wanted to show off some new piece of information I'd learned, she'd always act interested. She'd pretend to be a stupid girl so that I'd always get to think of myself as a right-sider.
ごめん
Sorry. So sorry. I'm really sorry.
タク。
Taku? Serika looked hurt when she saw me apologize. Why don't you understand? You don't have to apologize. This is what makes me happy, she seemed to say. But she only looked that way because I wanted her to. My ego and desire had created this role of a kind-hearted young girl that she was forever forced to play. The two of us were like that for a little while. I kept apologizing, and Serika seemed to not want to hear it. Yeah, he couldn't, and him existing absolutely just makes anyone else not the worst by default. Eventually, she spoke to me like a mother scolding her child.
タクはね、
But Taku, that doesn't mean you can forgive me. What?
私
I killed
No,
None,
John.
right?
でも
But the
その理由
reason
が
may be my fault.
僕の
No,
せ
it
いかも
wasn't
しれないん
maybe.
だ
There had to be something connected with me.
けど
But I'm
私は
dead,
死んじ
so
ゃ
you
ったか
can't
ら
ask me now, right? Somehow he would, yeah. Gold farm for perma-stat upgrades. Oh, nifty. Serika was right. No, I was forcing her to be right.
じゃあさ、
So then, of course, I knew what she would say next. Serika's voice became a light, the one thing that lit up my path in this dark
タ
world.
クは
What do you want to do, Taku? Suddenly, I saw a scene I remembered well. Until a moment ago, the blackness had kept me from remembering, no matter how hard I tried to imagine them. But now I could see my family. They must have been getting ready for dinner. I smelled something good. I looked in the kitchen and saw a lineup of dishes fit for a nursing home. Yui, if you take cooking lessons from Nono, they're going to start calling you Mom and Granny at school. Yuto was in the corner, sulking because Yui had made fun of him. Yui was looking at him and laughing. Yuki didn't know what to do. Nono gave Yui a brief scolding, but she was smiling while she did it. It was the same thing I'd seen a million times before. Nothing was different. Everyone was in the club room, going over the case. We seemed to be talking about Shibuya news. Kunosato had updated some information. Kazuki was playing her game. Ito wanted to stop her, but froze when she offered him a piece of dried squid. Arimura told a stupid joke, and Ito blushed and started to shake his head frantically. There was still no expression on Kazuki's face. There was another scene I knew well. This world was never coming back. My dad had destroyed it.
それで
Are you okay with that? Of course not. I loved my family. I loved my friends. Those places were the most precious things I had. He'd ruined them all, and when I'd asked him why, the only reason he could give me was that it was fun. I couldn't let him get away with that. No matter what I did, Yui and Nono weren't coming back. The life I'd had with my friends was gone. My feelings began to break free from the darkness and come to life again. Blood flowed through my body once more, and my senses started to return to me. That's right, I
敵を取らなきゃ
have to get revenge.
ダメだ。
Even if that meant breaking my promise to Nono. Oh, you've broken that so much. Just every action you take breaks that promise. Didn't care what my dad was trying to accomplish with this experiment, or what was happening to me. He wanted something from me. What was it? I don't even want to know.
それを知ろうとしなく
You
て
don't want to try and find out?
いい
No. I didn't care. I refused to go crazy like he wanted.
なんか
Huh, that's not like you.
うるさいな。
Shut up. But I kinda want to see what you look like when you're letting your emotions take control.
ちょっと見て
I
みたい
smiled
な
back at her, and then I focused all my neurons on creating a delusion. Where had I been? Who was I so angry at, and where were they standing? If I was in a prison of delusions created by that machine, then I'd have to come up with a delusion that was even more powerful. And then I'd pull him into my own delusion. The way I remembered it was like this.
お
Hmm?
もうちょっ
Wasn't it
と
a
明
little
るくなかっ
brighter?
た
The lights were
天
shining
井
down
か
the
ら
stage,
照明
right?
当たってるんでしょ
Were they?
うん
Yeah,
Evan,
I think
これくらい？
about this much.
あとは
Oh,
も
but
う
a
ちょ
bit
っと
closer.
近かった
Closer, huh? How about this?
オッケーさ
Okay.
すが
Those
Camera
long hours with the
hit
camera
the
really
camera.
paid off, huh? Sarika walked around the stage, checking to see if there was anything I'd missed. She must have been satisfied because she nodded several times.
タクの立ち位置もオッケー
Is the place you're standing okay too, Taku?
意識が飛んだ時
I'm
の
still where I
ままなら
was, then yeah.
違ってたらどうす
What
る
if you
の
aren't?
その時はその時
I'll
だ
come up with something when the time
確
comes.
実な方
There's
法
no
なんて
sure way to
一個
do
ない
this,
ん
you
だ
know?
からな
Sarika pretended to be impressed with what I'd said. I laughed at myself too. Was I really the type of person who was brave enough to do something like this? I used to think that risky decisions weren't courageous, but stupid. I used to think that courage was just a word people use to hide their stupidity.
そうだ
Oh, right,
Taku?
Taku?
私の仇は
Don't try to avenge me, okay? What?
のんちゃんたちの仇
You
は
have to get revenge for
取らなきゃ
None,
ダメ
but no taking revenge from me. Got it?
それは
That's...
いいから
Just listen to me.
とにかく
The
その
only
瞬
person
間
you're allowed to think of when you do it is
タクが思っていい
None.
のは
Got it? I'm sorry, and thanks. Those are the only words I could come up with. I didn't know what else I could say.
ほらタク
Come on, Taku, get a hold of yourself. Otherwise, why did I come here? Sarika pouted a little. It was the same thing she used to do in the newspaper club. Tried to stop my tears from welling up again. I'm fine. I'm in
ちゃ
control.
んとしてるよ
Have I ever not been in
この
control?
僕がちゃんとしてなかったこと
So
なんてある
many
か
times. Constantly.
あと
Well, there was that one time or the other time, and then
指を折って
stop counting them on your fingers. She laughed, and then she looked right in my eyes.
多分向
You'll
こうへ戻っ
probably
た
only
瞬
have
間
one moment when he's off his guard when you come back, so your chance,
一度あれば十
one
分だ
chance is plenty. That's right, I would only have a few seconds in the world of my delusion. And a few seconds when I got back to reality. I'd probably have less than 5 seconds in total. If he'd been researching physics for as long as he said, he'd notice what I'd done immediately. So I'd only get one shot. If it didn't work, he'd kill me this time. Sarika looked relieved when she saw my resolve, and then she smiled and started to fade away, as if her job was done. At the same time, I felt a stabbing pain in my head. It was the pain from when the D sword appears. Here it comes.
無謀なことにかける覚
This will
悟
be a risky bet,
Okay.
okay?
オッケー
Okay.
賭け金が自分の命
You're
だと
betting
いう
your own
現
life,
実は
okay?
オッケー
Okay.
バカな決断に
You
言い
won't
訳
get to
をし
make
ない
any
意志は
excuses for your dumb decisions, okay?
オッケー
Okay. Then go. Get up on that stage, Taku. We get a song here. Voice actor gives it all. Not that we haven't known that already, but like, I slammed my own delusion down on top of the one that held me. It's like splattering bright paint on a black canvas. In a single instant, a perfect replica of the theater appeared. Yes, it was working. Dad was in front of me. He looked surprised. I could tell from the shock in his face that he hadn't yet realized. This was a world of delusion sitting atop another delusion, and that I'd dragged him inside. The machine on his back started to crack and moan. Its shape was becoming warped and distorted, as if it was being crushed by an invisible giant. I screamed louder as I tried to use my power to destroy it. Dad stepped back, as if to protect it, the look on his face making it clear that he still couldn't believe what was happening. No, the opening hasn't played. Yeah, but it was too late. I wouldn't have skipped it, it just hasn't played. Crush it. Crush. That's true, I've never let the title screen just play, so I was always worried like an opening would have spoilers, so I just didn't let it play. Crush it! I hit him with a stronger delusion. The outer frame couldn't take the stress, and the machine started to break. You little shit. Dad panicked and raised his D-sword to use his mind control on me again. A red light flashed in front of me, but it wasn't the mind control again. It was the opposite. This was the key for the plan that the other Serika and I had come up with. Dad, Tsukuma, had made a mistake. He thought that I'd escaped from his mind control on my own. He thought that I'd escaped from that delusion and made it back to reality. So he did just what we hoped he would, and ended the mind control that was on me now, even though I was still inside that dark prison. If Dad had stayed calm, he would have noticed his mistake immediately. But it was all so sudden that he panicked and made the wrong decision. That black torture chamber was gone, and in that instant I cancelled my own delusion. The bonds that had tied me in place were gone. My senses came back and told me that this was reality. The pain of my injury, the smell of blood, and the taste of blood, the feeling of the D-sword in my hand, Dad howling as he stood there with his fake sword raised high. But just getting back to reality wasn't good enough. I only had a few seconds, probably. I needed to destroy the real device before he figured out the trick. Run. I forced my aching body to move and ran at full speed towards my foe. Excuse me. I lowered my body as I ran and held the D-sword ready. A new attempt at mind control came at me. I could feel it trying to scramble my brain, but I wasn't stopping. I couldn't stop. I bit down hard on my lip and used the pain to check my 5 senses. You're still okay. Don't stop. Run. Keep running. I swung the D-sword down at my father. Dad tried to dodge it, but that was just what I wanted. He ducked low, and I could clearly see the device on his back. I slammed the D-sword down into it hard before he could move. Good. Panting, I pulled the D-sword out of the device. Parts flew everywhere. The strange light it had been giving off disappeared, and the artificial D-sword he was holding lost its shine. The pain created by his mind control attempts vanished like it was never there. As soon as I saw that the device was destroyed, I fell to my knees. I'd used my power while running at full speed, and it hurt to breathe. I was dizzy from lack of oxygen. You piece of... The problem is he's still holding a large slab of metal or something, and is bigger than you. Dad's mood suddenly began to change. He seemed to realize what I'd just done. The smile on his face vanished, and instead of anger, there was no expression at all. Do you know how hard I worked to get this thing put back together? I never heard him use a tone like that before. What?
なんで壊
Why
れてねえん
didn't
だ
you break?
なんで生きて
Why are
る
you alive?
Yeah,
No,
nande
why are you still
seishin
sane?
o tamotte
There's no way you could have
Tenega.
endured that.
俺は確か
I
に
know I locked you
30
in there
日
for
間お前
30
を
days.
しくじった
Did I screw up? No, there's no way that guy could do it,
あ
and
の
I
男にでき
couldn't.
て
That guy? I used the D-sword as support to help me to my feet. It was fine. I could move. I could move just the way I wanted to. I was sure of it. I'd made it back to reality.
おい答えろ
Answer me. How can you
お前
move?
なんで動け
I
るんだ
readied the D-sword
よ
again without saying a word. There was still no expression on Dad's face.
そうか
I see.
こいつか
Her, huh?
そう
So
い
that's
うこ
it.
とか
I looked down. Sarika was lying there, looking like she was asleep even though she was dead. Dad's anger vanished, and instead he started to speak like a scientist observing a guinea pig. That's even creepier somehow.
イマジナリーフレンドだけ
So
で
your
乗り切った
imaginary
って
friend
の
was
か
enough to get you through it, huh?
殺した相手に
I
すが
didn't
り
see
つ
you
くと
going
は
to the
思わ
person
な
you
かった
just killed for help.
たく
Damn it.
面
Now
白
that's
く
no
ねえこ
fun
と
at
しやが
all.
って
Dad raised the now dull D-sword and came towards me. It was no longer an artificial D-sword, but it was still a giant metal blade. Even without his powers, it was more than capable of killing me. I stepped away from him, my own weapon at the ready. Felt like if I looked away from him, I'd be killed. You
狂え
probably
って
would.
俺は言っ
I
たよ
told you to go
な
mad, didn't I?
なあ
The iron blade suddenly came down. There was an impact on my face. I felt some of my back teeth break and blood spurred from my mouth. I'd been knocked onto the floor. I swung the D-sword in my hand frantically. For a moment, I experienced the pain and light that were caused by mind control. Is that thing still working? It wasn't broken? It had to be. I dropped the D-sword in despair. It vanished. But the mind control never came. My attack a moment ago had damaged it. It's really broken.
このクソガキ
You goddamn kid. Tsukuma's iron sword struck me in the left leg. An indescribably awful pain ran up my spine and smashed into my brain.
そんなことなら最初か
I
ら
should have just used the mind control to put you in the torture room from the start. Maybe I'll torture you for real right now. How'd you like that, huh?
リアルだよ
That's a CG, yeah. It hurt. The pain was unbearable. Was this plan stupid after all? I mean, was there no way to win?
ほらよ
Take this.
ダメだな
Nah, there's nothing new to be learned by driving someone mad with pain. What happened to my leg? My body? Were they still there? Couldn't move, just like in that black prison.
Maybe
I'll kill them all in front of you then. Huh? I could hear those words clearly, even as my whole body screamed from pain. They're probably still in Shibuya, right? The instant I understood what he meant, I forgot the pain coursing through my body. Yeah, that's right. The more important they are to you, the better it'll work. He kicked me, and I rolled along the ground. Then he started to walk away. Wait. My throat hurt as I screamed. It was frustrating how I couldn't even speak. He was leaving. He was going somewhere. Where? Where else? To where they were. He was going after the people I loved. I won't let you go. I tried to stand up, but the leg he'd struck wouldn't move, and I fell to the ground. I hit my face on the floor. My left leg wouldn't move. Was it broken? It was the one place I didn't feel any pain. Damn it. My body wouldn't move. Why? I'd finally made it out of that darkness, right? I couldn't just let him go. Move. I didn't care what moves. He was going to kill them right in front of me? Kill Arimura, kill Uki, kill Yuto, kill Kunosato? I wouldn't let him. I mean, maybe Kunosato. I wouldn't let him do it. As my vision blurred from the pain, I saw Sarika's body lying on the ground. You have to take revenge for None, but no taking revenge for me, got it? I won't let you. I howled. And my D-sword appeared as if an answer, and then it sliced through the air towards my dad as he walked away.
Nani?
What? Oh. That might be... he might be dead. He might be dead. My dad turned around at the noise, just in time for the D-sword to impale his throat. Well,
He might
yeah,
actually be dead.
he might be. Then he slowly fell backwards to the floor. Hey, ass! How's it going? Ooh, how's it going? Thank you for 30 heckin' months of Prime Root subscription. Very, very awesome. Yeah, just that heads up of this game does not shy away from blood, gore, and we at the end of it, so... I mean, I'd like to say that's probably the bloodiest thing that's going to happen tonight, but I cannot prove that, so that warning. But also, thank you. How's it going? I hope you're doing well. Yeah, also super duper spoilers. We at Endgame, if you ever in any way plan on playing these. Yeah. That said, I would have said we were at Endgame for the past, like, 3 streams, so... Bandage could fix them? Yeah, only if you put it right here. Yeah. Somehow managed to endure the pain that was coursing through my body and stand up. There was blood everywhere on the stage. I avoided it, dragging my unmoving left leg as I walked towards the body that used to be my dad. The D-sword was still shining as it stuck out of his throat. I made it disappear. When I saw what was left, I didn't feel a sense of accomplishment or anything else, just an urge to vomit. Monitors only learn. Monitors were too big! I mean, nothing wrong with big monitors, but yeah, that could make it difficult. He was lying on the ground. I'd killed him. Killed my dad. What the hell is going on? How could this have happened? Taking revenge for Nono and Yui didn't make me feel any better at all. Huh, who would have thought? Revenge isn't the answer. Didn't feel happy at all. Huh? I realized I was crying. I didn't know how long I'd been crying, but my tears were red. Everything around me felt like a lie. I was having trouble standing up, and not just because of my injury. This was how it felt to cross a line that you should never cross. I tried to smile and forget my tears. What was I doing? Was this how it felt to break my promise to Nono? Oh, right. Serica. I remembered the real reason I'd come here. There was something I wanted to ask her. I looked away from Dad and walked over to Serica, dragging my leg behind me. That's right. That's not happening now, is it? Looked down at Serica and reached out my hand. I wanted to at least fix up her clothes where they'd been messed up. There was a loud, heavy noise and an impact. Around my stomach? Huh? What was that? I looked down at my body, trying to find the source of the sound and the noise, and there was a D-sword sticking out of my stomach. It was the same one that had taken Nono's life on the roof of Hekiho Academy. I do have tea, thankfully. Also, hey Mike, how's it going? Welcome back for land in the chat. Oh, you're just gonna cut away there? Okay. November 6th, 2015, Friday. The D-swords are usually pretty cool, yeah. 10:50 p.m. The second Shibuya Restoration Festival is now over. The murmuring among the crowd at Memorial Park started as soon as the ward mayor finished his speech. Some people headed straight for the station, glad to be done. Some people were so moved by the speeches given by the victims that they stood in front of the memorial wiping away their tears. Some people went out to go drinking, since it was Friday. They'd all come to the Restoration Festival for different reasons. But even now, when all the planned festivities were over, there were still some people who hadn't seen what they'd come for. What? He's not here? What idiot said he was going to be here? The whispers started all over the place, and others agreed, even though they would never say it. They all looked around with searching eyes. Everyone was looking for Takaru Miyashiro. At the same time, Shibuya Scramble Crossing. Excuse me. This place was even more packed than the Memorial Park, and the reaction was even stronger. Of course he's not going to kill himself. Don't believe everything you read, you dumbass wrong-sider. Wow, that ticks me off. Some started to say that the whole thing was a hoax, and more people began to leave. The ones that didn't move at all were the ones in masks. They were waiting for Takaru Miyashiro more than anyone. But the festival was over. When the heat and passion of the festival began to fade, and reality came crashing in, they began to doubt. He was the mastermind behind all those murders. They thought that it would be nothing for him to commit suicide in public. But were they wrong? Or was someone that brilliant capable of making an announcement like that, then managing to escape? The ones that stood in groups began to stare at each other with their three-eyed masks, trying to guess what the others were thinking. Should they move somewhere with less people? They waited for someone to suggest it. What's that? And then something happened that saved them. At the center of the commotion were police officers running somewhere in a hurry. Well, in theory it shouldn't have. They had mentioned that it was strong enough that, like, even if he died, it was there. But maybe that was boasting, to be fair. He could have straight up just been boasting. And maybe the destruction of the device had an effect that his death wouldn't? I don't know. We don't know. No, wait a second. I'm telling you. Shinjo kept suggesting that they get confirmation, but his boss ignored him. When the information had come in, he'd lost his ability to control the situation. Oh, wait! Damn it! They cursed at the phone as they hung up on him. This was bad. This was really, really bad. What's wrong? Kunosato, I told you to wait in the car! You made me wait too long. What happened? Shinjo looked at the time. It had already been 10 minutes after he'd gone back to Alba Dorm and gotten everyone into the car. There was an anonymous call. They know that Miyashiro is at the Hikariro. Hikariro? What? It's probably the first time that he'd ever seen her go pale. Who told them? I don't know. HQ insists that it doesn't matter. Shinjo had repeatedly asked for a source, but it didn't help. The way his boss had been acting, it was possible that they didn't even know where it had come from. Our officers are on their way to the Hikariro now. What will you do? Now that the police knew that Miyashiro was at the Hikariro, there was no time to go to Akihabara and back. He had to be there. It was his job. He was the detective in charge of the case, and if Miyashiro was going to be arrested, he was the only one who could help. But getting the kids from Alba Dorm was out. Out was something that only he could do. What should he do? He kept asking himself that. Go. We'll escape Shibuya on our own. What? But you don't know what's going to happen if you try. That's why he remained as a guard. I'll figure something out. Just leave the car. Huh? She couldn't mean... He had a bad feeling. Did Kunosato have an international license? Is this the time to be worrying about unlicensed drivers? Go! I mean, you're transporting kids, so yes. Listen. Suddenly his phone began to ring. This time it was from one of his men. There wasn't even time to think about it anymore. He prayed as he tossed Kunosato the key. Yeah, she's just Tokyo drifting around corners. There are kids in that car. Don't do any crazy driving. Of course. Who do you think I am? Do you want that answer? Call me if something happens. If that doesn't work, run into any police box and give them my name. Shinjo ran off without waiting for an answer. Shinjo? Huh? He turned around. Kunosato had a totally earnest look on her face as she spoke. The accelerator's the one on the right, isn't it? They're gonna die. This is the look of a man who has made a mistake. Shinjo had to force himself not to go grab the keys out of her hand. Look it up on the internet, wrong cider. Ooh. Ooh, well played. Well played, he yelled as he ran towards the Hikari. If you're gonna be like, I'm the only one on the right side, I have all the right information, I know everything, maybe you should have known that. Huh? It was cold, and I was sleepy. My body wouldn't move. Huh? Was I back in that world? That dark prison? No, it's not dark. No. I could still feel pain. My senses were still working. Then what was this? I remembered where I was. I'd passed out? No, you'd been passed through. My back, my stomach. I felt the warmth fading from my body with each drop of blood I lost, but my wounds burned like someone was pressing a soldering iron up against them. Yet for some reason, I felt sleepy. This didn't make sense. My whole body had stopped making sense. I heard footsteps. They were getting further away. I forced my eyes to open and look towards the source of the sound. The first thing I saw was my dad's body, the body of the man I'd killed. Till a moment ago, he'd still been a person, and beyond him, I saw her through my blurry eyes. Onoe? She was getting further away. It was Serika. She was alive. She was walking. She had just put her phone in her pocket. She was walking across the stage. Probably she was headed for the exit, high among the seats. She didn't look back. Why are you alive? It wasn't a hallucination, at least it shouldn't have been. No one was left who could use mind control. Yeah, I guess she called him. Wait, oh no, wait! There's something I have to ask you. That's why I'd come. Move, damn it. Come on, this was supposed to be my body, right? Why wasn't it moving when I tell it to? Serika stepped off the stage. She made her way through the seats to leave. She was about to disappear. No, don't, wait! Please, come on, move! Suddenly I felt a familiar pain in my head. I obeyed my intuition and let it go. The D-sword appeared in my hand. That's right, I could do it, just like I'd done before. I used my powers to fling the D-sword at Serika. Didn't care if it landed at her feet or where it landed at all. Just had to stop her. Serika sensed it coming and turned around. At the same time, a light appeared around her. Her D-sword appeared from within the light and she grabbed it. And easily blocked the incoming blade. When the two swords hit, my vision went white. You want me to use mind control on you? Yes. What? What was going on? What was I looking at? Got a lot of questions, but can I start by asking why? That seems to be the overarching question of why, Serika? I read Nono Kurisu's mind before I killed her. She left a letter behind. I see. How heartrending. So she knew she was going to be killed then. Sora's blade. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of powerful. The police probably already have it. Sooner or later, Takeru Miyashiro is going to read it. And when that happens, Miyashiro will be held back by her death, and by what's inside. He'll try to do what the letter says. And what does it say? Don't try to get revenge. Give up on the case. Huh? That happens, Miyashiro will stop for sure, and that's a problem for me. So I have to make him interested in something besides revenge or the case. I have to make him interested in me. That will cause him to act. Yeah, how do you know that? I know everything there is to know about Miyashiro. That's who I am. So why do I have to use mind control?
彼のそばには
Because he'll have Hine Aramura with him. I want to neutralize her power.
思考誘導で
If the mind control causes me to believe the lie, it stops being a lie. Aramura will think it's the truth, and so will Miyashiro.
あ
Oh, the same trick we used with that Ito kid. Sarika was talking with Dad. The vision was unclear, like it was wrapped in a fog. But this whole thing's such a pain, though. It'd be so much easier to use mind control on Takaru himself, right? Hey, don't get mad.
彼に対して
I want to minimize use of mind control on him as much as possible. It damages the brain, correct? Yes, but I'm going to use it one more time. At the very end. No way I can beat a Gigalomaniac without it. One time, he says.
もう一度だけだ
Just one more time. Got it. Heh, got it. No, he definitely hit him more than once. I could see the two of them talking. Looked like an old movie, shown through a projector that was slightly out of focus. But I wasn't really seeing it. The vision seemed to be coming directly into my mind.
じゃあ次だ
Okay, next. What kind of mind control do you want?
筋書きはこうだ
The script will work like this.
一つ
First, you've lost contact with the committee, and you want to get back in their good graces. Make me believe this lie.
二つ
Oh,
真のためにお前は
so that's a
協力者
lie
の私
then.
を裏切り
Second, you've betrayed me and are trying to make Takaru Miyashiro out to be the criminal in order to win the
私の
committee's
脳に刷り
favor.
込め
Make me believe this. So, he's either still in contact with them, or doesn't want to get back in their good graces, or both. I don't know which aspect of it is the lie, but at least a part of it.
三つ
Make me tell him myself at the appropriate time that I was the one who killed his parents, yeah.
私自身のそして最後は
And finally,
私の生きる目的
change the reason I exist. That's right. These were probably Sarika's memories. Were her memories coming into me via the D-Sword?
俺までそ
You want me to involve me in your lies too?
そうしなければなら
I
ない
have to. There's another person besides Aramura who's a threat to the plan. Mio Kunasato. Yeah, I imagine she'd be a threat to, like, anyone.
あいつか
Her, huh? I see.
久野里美桜は
She knows too much about what's going on. That's why we made up the story about the committee. Whenever the committee's involved, she stops thinking straight.
私が委員会の情報を持ってい
If
る
we can make her think that I have information on the committee, she'll never let me go. Ironically, thanks to her, I'll be able to stay near Miyashiro.
お前
You're a scary woman. You figured all that out on your own? Or is this thanks to your mind reading?
このゲームの登場
I'm the one who's controlling all the characters in this game.
私だ
Game? I remembered something. The theory I'd come up with is in the newspaper club room. That it was like the killer was challenging me to a game. That the killer was moving people around like chess pieces. That they wanted me to be the other player in the game. Once my dad identified himself as the killer, I'd given up on my theory. I thought I was wrong. But maybe I was right.
なるほどゲームね
I see, a game, huh? I like anything that's fun, though I don't like the idea of changing the reason you exist, even for a short while.
余計なことは言わなくて
You don't need to get involved. All you want is data on Miyashiro. I'm the true Gigalomaniac, right? I'll give you what you want.
それでいいの
確か
Well,
にそうだ
that's true. Though I said this before, the chance of Takuru's mind entering what I'm planning on doing to him is zero. We haven't even hit an ending. I picked this method of torture up directly from the guy who ran that basement facility under AH Tokyo General.
彼を見くびるな
Don't underestimate him. I've said that many times before as well.
壊しちまって
You don't mind if I break him, do you? We both decided that you wouldn't interfere.
お前に思考誘導
If you didn't have that mind control device, I would have killed you
殺
first.
面
していたな
白いね
Sounds fun. Wanna try it?
クズか
You scum.
おっとそうだもう一つ
One more thing. Why do you need me to make him look like the killer? You just want him to solve the case, right?
それは
That's, of course, where we cut out. My vision blurred. There seemed to be a chorus of buzzing inside my head. This feeling, it was the same as when I used my power. The same as when I saw the D-Sword in the corner of my vision. Another vision came to me through her D-Sword.
彼の中の彼が
The him inside him speaks to me.
自分は他の人と
I'm different from other people. Lots of people say that, but most of them are wrong. They're all wrong-siders who just don't realize it. I'm the only one who's really
長
different.
尺ばかりでも僕だけは本
Was this
当に他の人
me?
と違う
I survived the nightmare of the Shibuya earthquake, and someone killed my parents. The definition of special is has something that clearly differentiates it from others. Few people have experienced these things. That's why I'm really special. Turns out he really was, but not for those reasons. Hey, did I ever tell you about the comments from the Shibuya earthquake victims? What do you mean? Remember how just after the chaos from the earthquake calmed down, a ton of reporters started asking the victims for comments? Before the term chaos shout syndrome existed. Most of the interviewers were about what good citizens we were. After that huge disaster, there was barely any violence or looting. They said this was amazing. And I think they were right. When they asked the victims what was the hardest part, most people were more concerned about others than themselves. They talked about how they couldn't contact their families and tell them they were safe, or how they couldn't give their kids their favorite foods. But then one person said something different. I remembered what they said word for word. It left a huge impression on me. You outsiders have some nerve if you're telling us to hang in there. I remembered. It was what I'd said to Sarika at the cafe. It was just after the Love Hotel incident. It's incredibly important to him that he be a part of things. That's who he really is at his core. I don't know how you people can get so worked up over a single tweet. I could never do that. Let's go check out that arson site from yesterday. It's close to here. This one looks pretty good. He dived deep into the internet, drowned in information, and tried to become a right-sider to help himself swim. And he chose an urban legend to test his abilities. That broadened his interest into real-world crimes. It all began with... When we were in 6th grade, the New Generation Madness happened. That was 2009. It was like we'd gone crazy. What was this? This was me yesterday. How? Was Sarika's D-Sword reading my memories now? At first we couldn't believe that something like that was happening in the city we lived in. We spent almost the whole day glued to the computer following the news. When something big like that's going on, if you take your eyes off the internet for even a few hours, you'll get left behind. We stayed up all night in shifts following the case. Sometimes we'd use our cell phones to read the internet as we actually went out to the crime scenes and took pictures. Sarika hadn't been real then, but she'd been with me anyway. More murders kept happening, and eventually they started to say Takumi Nishijo was the killer, but eventually that turned out to be wrong. Sarika and I were both very excited. He seemed so cool. Proving your innocence means getting the right information, and shoving it in the faces of the people whose information was bad, right? It seemed like the ultimate expression of what I was trying to do then, and I guess I'm still trying to do now, with the newspaper club. Sarika said he was amazing. I agreed. Oh, one more thing. Why do you need to make him look like the killer? Because that's how it was during the New Generation Madness 6 years ago. It ended with the person who was believed to be the killer clearing his name and solving the case. I know how obsessed you are with the New Generation murders. It was your idea to make all the dates match and have people started calling the return of the New Generation Madness. Oh, yeah. Oh, relationship goals for that. Ugh. The whole reason you patterned the murders off the New Generation killings and left the sumo stickers at the scene for Takeru to find. It was to let him solve the return of the New Generation Madness, right? Then was the theory that had come up with the newspaper club room right? It was Sarika who was manipulating the characters and setting up the game. And her real goal was me. You came up with the murders. Don't blame those sick things on me. I have to at least test out my mind control a little, or it's no fun. But we've always set everything up fine this far, right? Why does it have to end the same way as the old case? I'll say it again. Don't underestimate him. Huh? Takeru Miyashiro will keep looking. The reason he created me is... The vision changed again. It was me. It was me back then, when I'd ran into the shelter.
そうだ
That's right. That's right.
そうだよ
That's what I'd thought then. I'd met the people from my class on the way there. They were probably trying to help a woman who was injured and covered in blood. They'd asked me to help. I couldn't move. I couldn't think clearly, even though I knew how to give first aid. They seemed to think I was going to just let the woman die, so they looked down on me. I hope I never end up like him, their eyes said. It was what I, as a right-sider, always thought about wrong-siders like them. It was the way I always looked at them. I hated it when they looked at me like that. I knew all kind of things they didn't. I should go back and tell them what to do. Were they treating her injuries right? Were they doing it in the right order? I could make the right decisions. That's what I thought. Takuru? It's like how it's still just Miyashiro's mother. It's like, they don't have names. It's unimportant. What are you doing here? Suddenly, my parents appeared. That was right. It was when I'd run into them at the shelter. They were yelling something at me excitedly, and they grabbed my arm and I shook them off. Takuru, what are you doing? Don't start causing problems again. You're saved.
僕は
I'm saved? Just come with me. All I could do then was open my eyes and stare at them. I'm saved, I remember thinking that. By people who never cared about me before. I shook my arm away again. Saved? Me? Why? These people had always neglected me. Now they were going to save me? Why? Just when I thought that. I saw myself holding my head in pain. My nails dug into my flesh, but the pain didn't stop and I kept screaming inside. No, this isn't right. Those wrong-siders in the class never did anything good before, but they wanted to be good now. They wanted to look at me like I was worthless. I could see myself screaming more. My heart and head felt like they were going to burst. You're going to save me? You, the people who just gave me 1,000 yen instead of taking me out to dinner on my birthday? Hell no. I'm not the kind of person who just gets saved by parents who don't even want him. My mom was yelling something, but I couldn't hear it then, and I couldn't hear it now. Shut up. You just think I'm in the way, don't you? Think the same thing. You're in my way. What did I do? What did I want to do? Why was I here? That's right, where's Sarika? I carried Sarika on my back to get her to the hospital. I couldn't feel her on my back through the pain in my head. But I was doing what I was supposed to do. I was saving her life. Sarika would understand that. She always told me what I did was right. She was always on my side. Suddenly everything went right. Wait. I said shut up. You people should just go away forever. Sarika, save me. Please. Onoe, please, give me... That's right. These were probably Sarika's memories. That's when I made my wish. To Sarika. Give me something I want to do. Help me do it. Sarika's memories came into me through the D-Sword, and my memories went into her. When she knocked away my D-Sword, the visions vanished. When I came back to reality, the first thing I saw was Sarika's face. It was filled with despair, like she was about to cry. Never seen her like that before. I knew immediately that she'd seen the same things I had seen. Give me something I want to do. Help me do it. This takes that to a little bit of an extreme, but... I mean, the finger on the monkey's paw curled, you know. That was the terrible wish I'd made. That was the only reason why Sarika Onoe existed. Laughter filled the theater. It took me a long time to realize that it was mine. The pain from the leg my dad had broken was getting worse, but the pain in my heart was somehow worse than even that. As I rose, Sarika started to stagger backwards, as if she was terrified of me. It lines up with his personality at the time, and he gave it no constraints, and he was clearly interested in murder cases and solving them. It's not a stretch. And when that is your only goal in life, what do emotions and remorse and worrying about killing people have to do with any of it? When I saw her, I laughed even more. I'd survived the worst that my dad could throw at me, and a single truth was about to drive me mad. I went forward, dragging my left leg behind me. I looked and saw that where I thought Serica had stabbed me in the stomach, she'd only cut a bit of the skin up on my side. I hadn't even reached my organs. This wasn't a fatal wound, which meant this was also...
全部
It was all just a big show. The sword that Serica had knocked away came back to me. I reached out my hands for it.
それで
And then this ends when with you declaring yourself to be the real killer?
いや違う
No, I guess not. That wouldn't mean that I'd solved it. It wouldn't feel real. Stop it.
そうか
So that's it. Dad's job is to be the real killer. I kill Dad, then once I think it's all over, you knock me out, and then...
違う
Oh man, the fact that he saw through the game, he didn't solve the puzzle, he saw through the game, he's kinda got a... She didn't succeed. The one thing she was set to do, she didn't do because he saw those.
それからお前
And
は
then you... Oh, I see.
母
You manipulated the information that was sent to the
世間に
public.
流す情報
Was
の
that what you were
調
doing
整
with
を
your
したの
phone?
か
Did you call the police?
もしかして
Even without Arimura, I could tell she was lying. Serica was crying. She was wiping away the tears with her sleeve. She looked like a little girl. No, she didn't just look like a little girl, she probably was one. She was only 6 years old.
だよな
That's right. The guy in the New Generation case almost got publicly executed. You'd have me arrested and dragged before a bunch of people, right?
で
And then what? Just when everything looked bleakest, evidence would come out that Dad, that Sakuma was the real killer, and I'd suddenly be a hero? Was that it? Tell me,
そういうこ
Onoe.
とか
My voice was shaking.
なあ
The laughter was turning into
Onoe.
something different. Serica kept crying and didn't answer me. Tears started to fall from my eyes and my vision began to blur. It was as if everything in our hearts was becoming tears and flowing out. When Utani died on the Don't Look at Me case, and Taka Yanagi died in the Leaky Noise case, and when Arimura's friend Kakita died, and when Watabe the journalist died, and when Haida died and was made to look like Senri Minamiyasawa, and when Ito was mind-controlled into killing Yui, and when Nono died, all of that was my fault? No, I did it.
そうだ
That's
お前
right,
がやった
you did it, and I made you.
僕がお前にやらせたんだ
I told you, that's not true. Serica's D-sword sliced apart some of the audience seats, but I kept going. Kunosada was right. Too many murders were going on around
僕の
me.
周りで事件に関する出来事当然だよな
Of course they were. The whole thing was set up so that I could solve it.
僕
You
が
killed my
両親を
parents because
殺
I
したの
wished that they would go away,
その
right?
時僕が
I
消えて
mean,
なくなれと
to
願
be
った
fair, he legitimately was better off without them. By a large margin. And that's even considering how things have gone down. I'm still considering this as better without them. Even up to this exact point, I still consider this better than... Serica didn't answer. I didn't expect her to. The case was perfect. It was just what I wanted to do. I thought it was a great scoop. Any less than I wouldn't have wanted to follow it to the end, right? But in the end, after I solved it, all that I'd be left with was emptiness and the guilt from what I'd done. Yes, but to most but Yui. Yeah, and no, but, you know. Excuse me. That's why I knew what I had to do. Dragging my leg behind me, I finally made it to the edge of the stage. I could see the steps down into the audience area. All that was left was to go down the stairs and out the door. Serica's expression changed. She was still crying, but she seemed shocked. Don't do it.
やめろ
She must have used her mind reading to see what I was planning to do. She ran to the bottom of the stage to block me.
バカなことは考
Don't do
える
anything
な
stupid. But I looked straight at her, as if to say that I wasn't changing my mind.
やめてくれ。
Don't. I said don't. Serica raised her D-sword and pointed it at me. It was a warning not to go any further, but I wasn't stopping now. You can't kill me, right?
もう一度。
I can knock you out again. When you wake up, everything will be over. You might know what happened then, but eventually you'll realize.
何に
Realize what?
お前が本当
What
にや
you
りた
really
いこ
want
と
to do
は
isn't what you're thinking right now. It's to be the
お前が今考えているよう
hero
な
who
ことじゃない。
solved the unsolvable case, the man the whole world adores.
そんなこと
That isn't what I want.
望んで
You do, I know. No, I'm the only one who knows. Serica's words probably came from reading the deepest parts of my heart. I wouldn't deny that. She was right. If I just let her handle everything, I would be a hero. And if I kept going forward, all that awaited me was destruction. When I thought about that, it was scary. It was terrifying. But I
ど
still...
うして
Why? She was still holding the D-sword. It was clear she had no intention of letting me go any further. I grabbed the hilt of my own D-sword and raised it as well. Come on,
来い
I said to her from on top of the stage. I said the same thing to her that she'd said to me in that black prison.
舞台に上がれ
Come up to the stage, Serica Onoe. I could see her on the other side of her D-sword looking hurt. But she must have read my thoughts and realized that I wasn't going to change my mind because she slowly came up. And now we go back to our initial question from ways back. How do you defeat somebody who can read your mind? My only guess would be she won't hurt him. That would be my only guess. That she'll actively leave an opening or something. Or she's straight gonna kill him here, like. But I don't think he can outdo her. The bright lights illuminated her beautifully. I took several steps back the way I'd come, so I could keep my distance. He's also at a bit of a handicap, huh? Must have lost too much blood, because suddenly I staggered, my vision blurred. With only my right leg working, I was barely able to keep my balance. Couldn't stop here, I couldn't.
どうしてだ
Why?
どうして
Why are you trying to come forward as the killer? No, why are you letting them think it was you?
その情報に踊ら
The
され
only
て
ones
い
who
るのは
believe that are the people down there, the wrong-siders.
情報強者のお
You're
前
a
が
right-sider,
最も嫌
and
い
they're the people you hate most. The ones who don't even realize that they're being manipulated by false information. They're just a bunch of idiots who came to watch you kill yourself, like they were watching a movie.
お前が名乗り出れば
If you say you're the killer, that'll be just what they want. Why didn't he kill himself? He's an asshole. No, he's a god. You can imagine what they'll say. I knew that. I could easily imagine it. The ones outside of the Hikariro building right now were probably the same ones who'd been partying at Shibuya Scramble Crossing earlier. There were probably a lot of people writing irresponsible comments online. The TV was probably filled with self-proclaimed social commentators who were telling the audience exactly what they wanted to hear. Yeah, definitely overlap a bit more than expected, but I'd been the same way.
僕は
I am a wrong-sider. What? This is
小さい頃から
that's the single line he could say in this entire game that is the most character growth for him.
何にも知
I
らなか
didn't
った
even know anything about the friend who'd been with me since I was a little kid. I do like the eye overlapping his eye, even if a bit offset. I gripped the D-sword tight. The game you created is over. The moment she hesitated, I struck myself on the back with my own powers. My vision blurred as I started to accelerate. I knocked myself forward and instantly closed the gap between myself and Serica. He could in theory fly, then. If he can propel himself forward, he can propel himself up. As long as somebody's watching. Caught off guard, she stepped back and lowered her blade. She was ready to swing it upwards. I ignored her and brought mine down. She brought hers up. Taku, what are you going to do?
あの時も
then. Another image came to me as the D-swords collided. Her sword knocked mine away, and I quickly brought it back for another strike. Hey, Taku, did you see something weird at the end of the video? Here, look, outside the window.
あの時も
Yeah, oh, 100%. They both got yeah, they did. Yeah. That's true, yeah. Or then, I saw flashes of several different conversations. Didn't know if they were my memories or hers anymore, but each time our D-swords collided, I saw another. Sarika wasn't just a normal girl who everybody loved. She was a mastermind who'd set up this whole game for me. And she killed Nono and Yui just to lead me to the end. The symptoms of blood loss were getting worse. My vision was darkening and it felt like I was about to pass out. She kicked me? A sudden fierce pain in my stomach knocked me off balance. I dropped the D-sword and flung up my hands to try and grab it again. Stop it! She kicked the sword away, spun all the way to the edge of the stage. Stop it. I fought through the pain and used my powers on the D-sword. It flew high up into the air. I said stop it, Sarika screamed in rage, but I couldn't stop. The D-sword spun wildly as it launched itself at Sarika. Damn it. She knocked it away, but I wasn't done yet. Take this! I used my powers to make the D-sword fly again. The sword attacked her once more. She knocked it away again? Each time it came at her, Sarika knocked it down. I couldn't land an attack. Damn it, why? Why? See, that's a shot. Oh, okay, well, let me take it. I was about to say, it's technically a blocked scene. Then I realized that she was looking at me. She wasn't looking at the sword. That's right, her power. That's why I couldn't hit her. The sword lost its energy and clattered onto the floor. I fell to my knees and collapsed. Framing. Just... You've had enough, right? Stop this, please. Damn, this wasn't going to work. She could read everything I was thinking. She knew the direction the sword was going to come, or more precisely, the direction I was sending it. This was bad. The room seemed to spin, and sometimes my vision would dim. Couldn't move my arms or legs. I felt cold and like I needed to throw up. Just sleep. The police will be here soon. Don't worry. Once you wake up and time passes, you'll realize what you really want. Sarika said it again, that this was what I wanted. But I couldn't let myself believe her. What should I do? What should I do? What if I had changed the direction of the lights to blind her and then attacked? But the second I thought it, she knew. What if I pretended to make the D-sword disappear and then concealed it in somewhere on stage? The second I thought of it, she knew of that too. That's right, you can't beat me. Please, just don't move. Don't open your wounds anymore. I didn't have the strength left to attack her myself. Even if I did, it was useless to try and attack someone who could read my own thoughts. And what could I do? Think! Stop it. Stop thinking about this. Think, there has to be a way. I was the one who created her. Then, suddenly I had an idea. Her expression suddenly changed. She was staring at me with wide eyes. Her mind reading meant that she already knew. She already knew exactly what I was thinking, but still, doesn't matter. Even if she can read my mind, she can't stop this. When I saw the tension on her face, I was sure of it. There was still a way I could win. I formed a strong delusion in my mind. When I did, I was hit by a headache 1,000 times worse than when I normally use my powers. It was far worse than having a needle stabbed into my temples. It was like every blood vessel in my head was filled with thorns. The pain was so bad I started to vomit up stomach acid. Stop it, please stop! Sarika tried to run over to me and stopped. She kept turning around and looking at the exit near the seats. She seemed to be uncertain as to whether she should run, which meant that this idea was going to work. It wasn't something anyone had taught me, but I was sure that I could do it. According to Kunosato, I wasn't like the other psychics who had each gained a single power after being exposed to what she called the causal factor. She said I might be a true gigalomaniac with the power to make my delusions into reality. And in fact, 6 years ago, I created Serica, a human being. Which means I should be able to do this. Of course I can, right? I twisted my body upwards and screamed. A huge number of D-swords appeared above my head. Of course, they were all fakes. The closest weapon to me that I could easily imagine just happened to be my D-sword, but I'd real booted them anyway. They shone like fierce beasts in search of prey. My head felt like it was going to burst. I imagined each blood vessel bursting one after another. Or was I really imagining it? Was this going to kill me? But I didn't care. I had to end it here. I had to let my puppet go free. Serica changed the form of her D-sword and spread it out as far as it would go. She was going to try to block them all? I screamed and sent them all flying at Serica. See, I thought he was just gonna, like, unmake her, but no. Oh, I guess he technically did, but not the way I was thinking. I was thinking, like, pop out of existence. And so... Hello, it's me. May I give you a lecture before we go to the ending? Miyashiro, are you safe? What happened? Good, connected. I could hear Arimura and the others calling my name on the other end. I felt so cold and my fingers were shaking. My only question with that was, like, if you need another person to be able to, like, witness it, at what point, like, could you erase the only other person witnessing it by real booting it? At some point, they'd stop being there and they'd stop being able to witness, like, depends on when that point is. But yeah, no, he just enough swords was the answer. It often is, to be fair. I felt so cold and my fingers were shaking. I turned the phone to speaker mode and started to type in the data. Let's say, for example, that you lived on top of a tall building. You looked down and saw a woman killing a man. You put the phone up to your ear to call the police, but your eyes meet with the woman's. She points at you and says something. What do you think she's saying? Don't tell me you're being mind-controlled. You know those psychopathy tests don't work, right? Excuse me. Someone whose abnormal personality poses a threat to themselves or society. In Japan, they're referred to as having an antisocial personality disorder. They're extremely lacking in morals and empathy, and sometimes can commit vicious crimes. The primary cause of psychopathy is believed to lie within brain, particularly the frontal lobe. I should have figured she'd known about it. A normal person would say something like, don't move, don't call the police, but a psychopath would say something different. 1, 2, 3. She'd be counting what floor you're on. That's right, so that she can come kill the witness. Supposedly it's because they're thinking from the killer's perspective, not the victim's, but... There was only silence. She must have decided there was no point in answering. But she was listening. But I don't think that's right. If you ask me, a real psychopath wouldn't think that. If you asked Ed Gein or Henry Lee Lucas, or any of them, really, they wouldn't understand the question. A real American serial killer. Some say that he killed over 300 people between the early 1950s and early 1980s. He was one of the models for the genius cannibal psychiatrist in a famous American horror movie. I can't imagine who that could be. And while a prisoner, he was an official member of the special task force dedicated to solving the crimes he'd committed. Died in prison from heart failure in the year 2001. A real-life American murderer. Gein dug up local graves dozens of times to remove the bodies of freshly buried women. which he turned into vests, socks, masks, and other things for him to wear. He only killed 2 people in his lifetime, but his shocking crimes left a huge impression on the public mind, making him the model for many fictional characters, one of the most famous figures in American criminal history. He died of cancer-induced respiratory failure at a mental hospital in 1984.
もし彼
I
に
feel like the two of
こ
them
の質問をされた
combined
ら
make up Hannibal, then.
きっと
If you ask,
質
though,
問自体
yeah,
が明日の晩ご飯と
they'd
か
be thinking about what they'd have for dinner tomorrow, or how they didn't like
気に入らないとか。
clothes, like the clothes the questioner was
被
wearing.
害者側
They'd
で
be
も
thinking
加
about
害者
something
側
else
ロー
entirely.
ルシャッハテストでも何でも
It's the same with the Rorschach test or anything else. There's no meaning to the answer they give, because to them,
全てはきっと
it's all a goddamn stupid game. My fingers stopped. It felt like a long time since I'd seen that picture.
だから思うんです
So I wonder what they were thinking.
あいつ
No matter
何
what you
を聞
ask
かれて
them,
も
no matter what they said, they were actually looking at something else. One single goal, so nothing they said actually mattered. You sure you're not being mind controlled? What happened to Sakuma and Onoe? Are you okay? Kunasato must have sensed that something was up, because the tone of her voice
あ
changed.
なたには
You kinda knew about her,
なんとなく
didn't
分か
you?
っ
The wound in my stomach and the pain in my head counted the time as regularly as a clock. Thud, thud, thud. It was a silence, 10 thuds long. I don't know the exact details, of course, but if what I imagined is close to the truth, then she was, without a doubt, different. In the sense that she was a serial killer, of course, but also that she was as different from normal people like us as you could possibly get. She just referred to Taku as a normal person. Even if accidentally. I mean, I guess comparatively he is. But it's weird for her to say it.
でしょうね
Sure, if you asked her that question, she wouldn't tell you about counting
さっきの
floors.
質問をされたら
Kunasato understood
回
after
数
all.
なんか数
She
え
knew
ない
that something was wrong with Serica.
どうすれば
How could I have known, you think? Doesn't matter. Answer me, are you safe?
いえ
Don't worry about
僕
me.
のことはいいん
How
で
do you
す
think I could have understood her? I heard a small sigh on the other end, and then a sharp voice that cut it off. That's impossible. I told you, she was a different kind of human. No, a different kind of creature. There was no way you could have understood her at all. Kunisato's use of the words different and normal. It was perfect, I thought. Serica was different, I was normal. Oh, what's wrong? I had a sudden premonition and looked down at the D-sword in my hand. I'd used this to create Serica. That's right, I'd created her. Which means I could do it again. No, it's nothing.
いえすいません
I'm sorry. Please take care of the rest. Now she would understand. Kunasato and Shinjo could deal with all this. I went to hang up without listening for her answer, but... Wait, Miyashiro, tell me one thing.
はい
Yes? What is it?
なん
I said you were normal back there, but what would you say?
さっきの質問です
I
か
mean that question I just asked? Of course, I wouldn't be counting 1, 2, 3. Of course, I wouldn't say not to call the cops either.
だって
Because I saw both of those answers on the internet already. I did what would probably be the last phone call of my life, and then I forced myself to get up, despite all the blood I'd lost. My vision blurred and I staggered, but I had to keep going. I couldn't fall over yet. I'd had an idea while I talked to Kunosato on the phone, about what I really needed to do with my powers, about the one way to save her, instead of releasing her. Serica was lying face down unconscious. She was a mess, there was blood everywhere, but it wasn't fatal, she was breathing. She was probably just unconscious. I forced my wounded body over to her. I put both hands around the hilt of the D-sword I'd been using to support myself. The sword had no weight, but I felt like I'd drop if I didn't. She must have heard the footsteps because Serica gave a soft moan. She slowly raised her head and looked at me. I stood close enough to look down at her from the side, and then... Her eyes went wide with surprise, and then she started to crawl away from me. It sure is a convenient power, I told myself, now that it was too late. She knew what I was thinking without me having to even say it.
ただ
But you won't need it anymore, though.
嫌だ
No. Serica tried to get away, her fingers digging frantically into the stage as she crawled. She glared at me and got up. But then her strength failed her, and this time she fell flat on her back. She gasped like she was drowning and quickly coughed up some blood. There were tears in her eyes. I readied the D-sword. Stop it, Taku. I stopped just once.
殺すわけじゃない
I'm not going to kill you, you know that. I'd rather you did. A scream echoed violently in my ears.
どうして
Why are you saying that?
そんなことを言う
I was going to use my D-sword to change her. I
僕
was
は
going to change her into a normal girl with no powers who didn't need to kill anyone and who didn't even know that I'd created her. I was going to rebuild her into a normal girl.
僕なら
I can do that. I'm the only one who can.
僕に
I
しか
created her from nothing. I knew I could do it. I could make her normal. No, no, I don't want to. She was crying like a baby. Was she scared? Afraid? Why? Don't take my reason for living from me. She was weeping and her voice was desperate. I've heard lots of mine since I was created. Everyone's always worried and no one ever knows what to do. I can't believe they live like that. How can they smile? They don't know what they're doing. I don't want to be normal. Her voice bounced off the stage and hung over the empty seats. No one but me heard it. Her tears fell on the floor, mixing with my blood.
ダメだ
No, you're going to be a normal girl. I spoke softly as I raised the D-sword high. No, please. Please, let me help you forever. I remembered what was in Nono's letter. Forget everything and live the same life as everyone else does, but don't get buried among the crowd. That's impossible for me now, but I know you can do it. This is it. Goodbye. Person of interest secured. Person's name is Takeru Miyashiro, 18 years old. He is a third-year student at Hekiho Academy. We have secured Takeru Miyashiro, someone who is believed to possess important information regarding a crime. February 2016. 3 months later. Morning at the Children's Welfare Facility Alba Dorm.
ユウ
You?
もうできるか
I
ら
can do it on my own now. When Yuki finished washing her face and came into the dining room, Yuto was already getting breakfast ready.
私がやるって言っ
I
た
said
の
I'd
に
do it.
うん座っててい
No,
い
you
よ
can sit down. She looked inside the kitchen and saw that Yuto had already done all of Yuki's work for her. Fine, she thought, I'll do the cleanup myself. Then she sat in her chair without further compliment. Lately, Yuki had learned to make a few dishes without resorting to the recipe scrapbook that Kurisu and Yui had made. Of course, the food didn't taste quite as good. But if nothing else, she was trying difficult recipes and burning the pan, like she'd been doing right after she came back here. Or she wasn't. After a short wait, Yuto brought all the dishes to the table.
ありがとう
Thanks. Okay, let's eat.
いただきます
Let's eat. Yuko could also make simple dishes himself now. It was his idea, and he'd been working hard at it. 3 months after everything had happened, with its owner, Sakuma, and Takeru, Kurisu, and Yui gone, Alba Dorm itself was in danger. The place had only survived because of Sakuma's salary, so that was natural. But when Shinjo had told them it was safe to go back to Shibuya, they both insisted on coming back to Alba Dorm. Shinjo insisted it was impossible, but surprisingly, it was Momose who helped them out. One of the few overarching, just good people. Momose has some strange friends, but seems to honestly be a force for good. She called in a few favors, and Alba Clinic had become the property of a completely normal private doctor, and some of the clinic's earnings were dedicated to keeping Alba Dorm alive. Of course, it wasn't a family like it was before. The doctor just worked at the clinic. He didn't manage the dorm. Instead, a nutritionist and nurse, both of whom said they were acquaintances of Momose's, would come by every day. But Uki and Yuto wanted to keep as much of their old lives as possible, so they wanted to make their own food. So on weekends and days when the nutritionist couldn't come, the two of them eagerly went to the kitchen. It's good.
少し厚
I
く
cut
切
it a
り
little
す
too
ぎたけ
thick,
ど
though. Only very recently had Yuto started to talk more. After what had happened to Yui and Nono, and what had been told about Sakuma and Takaru, he'd become nothing but an empty shell. The fact that he's even talking 3 months later is... damn. The one thing that had saved him was that even then, he'd stayed close to Yuki. He wanted to be with someone. Of course, the wounds in his heart hadn't healed. No, they probably never would. The loneliness and regrets would come back to haunt him again and again. Yuki herself sometimes had trouble sleeping at night. When that happened, she would go to Yuto's room because she was afraid of being alone at night. She would say, and the two of them would endure the terror together. The two of them were brother and sister, inseparable now. Just like Nono and Takaru had been.
あ、そうだ。
Oh,
受け入
right.
れ
About the
の
proposal.
う
Yeah?
ん
Yuki's chopstick suddenly froze.
僕は
I'm okay with it.
いいよ。
What? She didn't expect that answer. She thought Yuto would refuse.
使ってもらった
It
方
would be
が
better to have someone use them, I think.
いい。
They were thinking of accepting new members at Alba Dorm, which would mean they'd have to use Takaru's or Nono's rooms. She wanted to save them personally. Nono wasn't coming back, but she wanted to believe that Takaru might. But if Yuto had made his decision as the older sister, she'd had to support him.
そうだね。
You're right. She smiled the best she could and started to eat more of her little brother's cooking.
チャオス、ひなえちゃんで
Ciao! It's Hine! The door opened and Hine Arimura walked into the newspaper club room.
す。あれれ。
Oh, you guys got free period too, Hana?
うん。
The owner of the room raised a hand in greeting without even looking up, like she always did.
今日の機嫌は
Her mood is good today. She learned how to tell from the sounds of the keyboard. That's an art. Not from the sound she's making, the keyboard. Arimura sat in her usual spot and took out the book she was reading. Teru Miyake's famous 6,000 Lives and Deaths. There have been an awful lot of free periods lately, and during each one she would either come here and read a book or work on a novel as part of her literature club activities. Needs to be best, yeah? Miyashiro, Kurisu, and Ito were gone, so Kazuki was always here alone, and she almost never said anything. There was no need to worry about hearing lies. It was the perfect place for her. After the incident, she spent several weeks in Akihabara before suddenly being allowed to go back to Shibuya. Allowed wasn't the right word. She'd been dragged back here. She hated it, but even if it meant another fight with her family, there was nothing else she could think of doing. Excuse me. There hadn't been any problems with psychics since then, at least publicly. Sometimes Shinjo would call to check on her, but nothing special was going on. But she'd never expected the case to end like it did. No, she saw an unfamiliar expression in the book, so she decided to copy it down into the notebook she kept in the newspaper club. Handwriting was the best way to do this stuff, she thought. There was no class in just typing everything into a computer.
と
She stood up and looked for it on the steel shelves against the wall, but it wasn't where she thought it would be. She reached out her hand towards the back of the shelf.
あちゃ
Oops. And the papers that had been piled there fell off.
Oh.
Ah. Arimura and Kazuki froze when they saw one of them. It's a big map, folded many times over. She didn't have to spread it out to know what it was. It was the one the newspaper club had put in the wall when they were going over the case. There was no need for it anymore. So the first thing Kazuki had done after she'd come back to this room was take it off the wall. Arimura had come back a few weeks later, but she hadn't said a word about it vanishing. No, it would be more accurate to say that she wouldn't.
そういえば
You know,
Sa-
come to think of it,
セリ
it said Seri reacted to the light a little. It's a sign that she might wake up, they said. It was something that Shinjo had told her on the phone. Kazuki turned around to look at her. What will you do? Her face seemed to say. Arimura frowned and scratched her head.
どうもこう
We'll
も
do exactly what Miyashiro
宮代
wanted.
先輩の
I
希望通りに
guess
するだけだよ
there's nothing else she could do. That was the promise she made with him. Kazuki nodded and looked somewhere else. Arimura followed her gaze. She was looking at the chairs where Miyashiro and Sarika used to sit. For what it was worth, Arimura hadn't sat there in a single time since she started coming here. Probably, yeah.
じゃあ、伊
Then
藤君の方は
Ito's
もう
completely
完全に
innocent?
白
That was Momose's first question after hearing about what had just happened at the hospital.
はい
Correct. He really was just being mind controlled, it seemed. It's safe to assume he has no information on the committee.
あと可能性があ
The
る
only
の
other
は
possibilities are
この
Onoe
間
and
宮代
Miyashiro,
だけなん
but
ですが
この状況じゃ
not
ね
the way things are looking, yeah. Kurosato and Momose both sighed at the same time. Sakuma was dead. They'd gone over everything he owned, as well as his body, but learned barely anything. She had found, with the help of her very, very strange acquaintance in Akihabara, that Sakuma had indeed worked in the basement under AH Tokyo General Hospital, but nothing else. That sums up Daru, yeah.
データを丸ごと
All the data was deleted. There's no data left of Sakuma. She hated to admit it, but the committee was good at their work, and fast. Even the police didn't seem to know who he was. That night, 3 months ago, she still didn't know what had happened between Mayashiro Onoe and Sakuma. Well, I mean, I don't think she's met him face to face per se, I think they just chat. But I could be wrong. But if what she was imagining was correct, especially in light of her last call with Miyashiro, there was a need to question what Serika had told her at Frieza. He talked a lot about the committee, but looking back, there was a good chance it was a lie used to gain Kunisato's cooperation. As proof, even after she'd taken the psychics out of Shibuya, nothing had happened. Her hacker acquaintance had checked his network and hadn't seen anything at all. With no real reason to stay in Akihabara anymore, she'd come back to Shibuya. While she was gone, all the threads connecting Sakuma to the committee had vanished. Either she'd screwed up, or maybe... Oh, she was in Akihabara, so maybe she did actually
や
see.
はり佐久間は
Maybe Sakuma really
また
was
組織
no
人間
one
で
of
しか
importance at
なか
all,
ったということか
which meant they'd simply gave up on him when he was no longer useful. There was a lot of equipment that had disappeared from that underground facility. Even if he was the one who'd moved it, someone else must be in charge of it now. If she could find out who that someone was,
あと
The other
たどれる
chance
可能
is-
性があるとすれば
Momose looked at Kunasato and tapped her own temples.
ここね
In here,
カオ
Chaos
スチャ
Child
イルド
Syndrome.
症候群
はい
You're right. That was the one route she still had open to her. It was the piece of evidence she'd chosen to use to get her revenge on the committee. That strange disease that had started showing up in certain victims of the earthquake. Her phone began to vibrate in her pocket. She saw the name on the phone and realized that it wasn't time for his usual check-in. It meant something had happened.
どうした
What is it?
尾上が
Oh no, it has... February 2016. Everybody's favorite hospital. She slowly stepped into the hospital room. The room was clean, the air was pure. She nodded, satisfied with that. It was disappointing that no one had brought any flowers, but in light of his condition, there was no helping that. The curtain was closed, so she couldn't see him from here. She walked softly without a sound. She approached the bed nervously. She put her hand on the curtains and slowly opened it. The person she was looking for was lying there. She sighed in relief, and then brought her face close to his as if giving a kiss to a loved one. She was close enough that her short hair fell on his face. It's definitely an empty bed, though. He's fine. Yeah, he's fine. He's lost a little weight, but it was still the face of the boy she'd known for years. She opened the window. Fresh air blew into the room. The weather was great. It was the perfect day to go outside. Let's go, Taku. Breaking news. As of 9 a.m. this morning, the killer behind the Return of the New Generation Madness murders, Takeru Miyashiro, disappeared from a prison hospital. The bodies of several guards were found, evidently killed in a struggle. What? As for the reason the killer was being kept at the hospital, the police have stated that he was being examined as a Chaos Child Syndrome patient, and that there was no problem with the site's security. Okay. But there was also clearly nobody in that bed when she got near it. Alright, well, we've hit credits. So did we really just never see the opening because it was just leave the title screen on? If that's the case, then I stand by my decision, just because that OP would definitely have spoilers in it. How many endings we got? Go hit me, Ramen. Hit me with it. I was hoping there would just be like a Route B, a true ending, but you're phrasing. No, there's not. There can't be. There were only like 13 choices in the game. Alright. I had heard it was big, but I just expected it was going to be like one of the really long ending. Holy crap. No, we're not finishing before I2. Jeez. Ramen, hit me with that link, either here or Discord, it doesn't matter. 4 routes, one of which branches a true end, each of those have a bad end, but true. Jeez. Holy crap. I'd assume this was the default? Like, I don't know. I don't know if there's a default or if we just got one of the 13. Jeez. I didn't see that coming. Alright. I'm assuming it's a spoiler-free, or as spoiler-free as can be. Yeah, cool. This is the same website I used for the Steins Gate one. This is when it's the default ending. Cool. I'm glad we got the default ending first. That's what I would want. So, common route. Okay. Oh man. So, I don't think 30 minutes is enough time to start another route. As much as I don't like to end it early, especially after canceling stream twice this past week, I think it's the logical thing to do. I think over the week I'll just go through the spoiler-free guide, start picking some routes to go on, and the next week we'll start hitting them. Because I'm hitting every ending that's feasible. Like, if we're platinuming in this game, right? Hard stop, we're platinuming in this game. Oh, sure, for sure. I did. Yes, 100% agree with that. That was actually going to do that anyway. I was going to let these end and then do that. But I meant we're not going to start down another path right yet. But for sure, yes. I both agree with that and am going to do it. Holy crap. It was like, okay, that was fairly straightforward. There's probably one where, like, he is less ambiguously alive and well, but like, oh, we platinuming this, 100%. Mind you, visual novels are not known to be difficult to platinum, and I don't think this is going to be difficult either, because I think the average, like, platinum rate is like 50% or something. This was already a hefty main path. The last time we made a choice was like 4 or 5 streams ago? Oh man. My priority is finishing this and then we'll hit I2. Realistically speaking, nobody's going to spoil I2 for us. Like, that's not something I'm going to stumble upon on Twitter or something. I never saw a spoiler for I1, and I took like 2 years to play that game. So like, I'm not worried about spoilers. I'd much rather finish this without rushing it than rush it or cut it short. We'll do I2 as soon as we're done with this. I'm not worried about spoilers for it because it's unlikely to happen unless there's just an asshat out there that joins the Discord or something. Also, this art we didn't see in the playthrough. We never saw this art. Just Sundays. Didn't see that art either. I'm loving some of this art. I don't know if it's just for ending credits or if this is part of an ending, but I'm loving some of this art. I don't know, I'm not against that sort. I feel like the weekend... but can we really take 2 days of chaos back to back? Can we really mentally handle that? Yes, yeah. I could pick up that for sure. Maybe just for this, don't know. Or maybe she shows up. I don't know. Oh man. I thought there'd just be one other ending. I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Things just go happier. 13 endings is like, my brain can't handle that. I don't know. Like, The answer seemed to be everything. Oh yeah, no, I've got a... Yeah, I figured that was it, because those were the only choices we had, but I've got a spoiler-free guide up here that Ramen sent me, which was probably the one I'd find anyway, because it's the same website I used for Steins Gate Zero spoiler-free. So, like, we're good. I'm gonna bookmark this, but I'll just, like... I'm not looking up spoilers, because, like, why would I do that to myself? Oh?
たく叶えられたやりたいこと
Over, Sky, and First Ending! The game knew it was the first one. A hidden story has been unlocked. Also, the ability to blow my nose has been unlocked. Thank you for that. I don't speak Japanese, and I got the tone of it, but I probably could have guessed that was close to what she said, but I don't think I would have gotten it exact. So I appreciate that. Gameplay recording resumed. Yes. Oh, man. Oh. Jeez. So,